Chapter 474. Shi Jingxian, who was standing in front of the chair, was surrounded by red attributes. Although her one eye was empty, it was filled with endless killing intent. It felt like a beast that had lost its consciousness. It made one's hair stand on end and scalp tingle. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. How did a cute girl become so scary all of a sudden? The elders of Miaohua Palace, who had just entered, almost cursed when they heard him ask about the situation. Only you and the palace master were in the main hall. Now that she had gone berserk, who should we ask about the situation? Jun Changshao. Zhangsun Fanghua said angrily, "What's going on?" The fifth elder seemed to have thought of something and said, "Did the palace master go berserk after taking the pill just now?" Damn it! Zhangsun Fanghua glared at Jun Changshao and said, "Get into formation and stabilize the palace master." Whoosh! Whoosh! As they spoke, Leng Xingyue and the other elders rushed over. Their hands quickly formed strange seals, leaving behind a faint light wherever they stepped. Die! Shi Jingxian said in a low voice. The killing intent in her empty eyes was even stronger. She waved her small hand, and the red attributes gathered around her rushed over like a flood. Be careful! Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue stretched out their palms. Dense spiritual energy erupted and instantly resisted the attacking red attributes. Buzz! Buzz! The three types of energy collided violently and instantly formed energy ripples that surged in all directions in the hall. The furnishings were instantly shattered. The system said, "Very strong, not inferior to the two-peak martial kings at all." Fuck! Jun Changshao said in surprise, "That's powerful." In his opinion, Shi Jingxuan's cultivation was only at Wuzong. He did not expect her to erupt with such terrifying strength. No wonder she was the leader of a fourth-rate sect. No wonder the elders followed her orders. But, the system quickly analyzed. She's currently in a berserk state and has lost her rationality. Jun Changshao could also see it. In particular, her empty eyes were filled with killing intent. She would definitely kill anyone she met. Could it be that this powerful strength came from the berserk state? Boom! At this moment, Shi Jingxuan's red attribute had gained the absolute upper hand. She had directly repelled the power of the two-peak martial kings. Thump! 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 Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue retreated several steps, their expressions abnormally ugly. Schwa! 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 The other elders had already rushed over. Using a strange movement technique, they spun around, and their bodies were instantly filled with flowing light, which intertwined together to form an inescapable net, trapping Shi Jingxian within. Boom! Boom! The red attribute madly collided with the surroundings, causing the flowing light barrier to tremble incessantly, as if it could collapse at any moment. First elder, second elder. The fifth elder suppressed his boiling blood and said, "Come quickly." Zhangsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue strode over. They stretched out their palms and pressed them tightly against the barrier. Their peak martial king cultivation erupted and instantly stabilized the barrier. Who? The elders felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Boom! Boom! Trapped within the barrier, Shi Jingxian continuously bombarded the barrier. However, with 8 martial kings stabilizing the barrier, she was unable to break it. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Who can tell me what's going on? First elder, I feel that this is a huge misunderstanding. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the iron prison, said with a crumbling face. The 8 elders of Ingenious Flower Palace subdued Shi Jingxian and then captured him. He was completely dumbfounded throughout the entire process. Zhangsun Fanghua fastened the chains and said coldly, "You'd better pray that the palace master is fine. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving Ingenious Flower Mountain alive." Jun Changshao was speechless. He had kindly come to deliver the medicine, but in the end, he was reduced to a prisoner. As expected, it was not easy to be a saint. The system was very puzzled. Even if a low-grade medicine has no effect, it shouldn't cause one to lose their rationality. Fuck. Jun Changshao sat on the wooden bed and said, I've been screwed over by you. Why are you blaming me? If you didn't say that you wanted to befriend Ingenious Flower Palace, why would I be here? Why would I be imprisoned? I didn't put a knife to your neck and force you to come here. It's your fault. Don't explain. It's not my fault. I won't explain. They were arguing. Actually, with Jun Changxiao's strength, he could have just run away. However, if he didn't get to the bottom of this, it would be equivalent to offending Ingenious Flower Palace. Come to think of it, thinking about what happened in the main hall, he muttered, when Palace Master Shi went berserk just now, there was a different kind of charm to her. The system was speechless. He was already locked up, but he still cared about her when she went berserk. Was this guy despicable? Sect Master Jun was locked up for 2 days. During this time, he didn't even have anyone to deliver food to. This made him speechless. Even if I offend people, they should at least give me something to eat. Ka. On the 3rd day, the chains were unlocked. Zhang Sun Fanghua said unhappily, the palace master invites you in. Jun Changshao got up from the wooden bed and hurriedly asked, Palace Master Shi is fine? Zhang Sun Fanghua's face was cold as she said indifferently, if anything happened to the palace master, you would have been dead by now. Jun Changshao didn't say anything. Under her guidance, he went to the inner courtyard of Ingenious Flower Palace and arrived at the independent courtyard where Shi Jingxian lived. Sect Master Jun. Just as he was about to enter, Zhang Sun Fanghua said indifferently, this old one doesn't want you to pester the palace master. It's best if you leave today. Oh. Sect Master Jun nodded. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Shi Jingxian sitting in front of the small pavilion. Her face was slightly pale, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. Sect Master Jun, are you here? She heard the movement and spoke softly. Her voice was very weak, as if she didn't have any strength. The elementary spirit medicine didn't have any effect. Although he was mentally prepared, Jun Changshao still shook his head and said, Palace Master Shi, I'm really sorry. Taking the pill made you feel uncomfortable. During the few days of being locked up, he had also thought about it. Shi Jingshuan's sudden outburst was definitely related to the elementary spirit medicine. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian lowered her head and said apologetically, I should be the one apologizing. No, it's my fault. I trusted that fraud who claimed to be an expert of Qi-Huang, Jun Changshao said. Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, it's not the first time I've lost my rationality. Sect Master Jun happened to encounter it. Not the first time. Jun Changshao was stunned. Shi Jingxian said bitterly, I won't hide it from Sect Master Jun. Actually, not only do I have an eye disease, I also have a strange illness. Every time I'm depressed, I'll lose my rationality and do some cruel things. After I recover, I can't remember anything. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. He thought about how gentle and cute she was now, and then how she had gone berserk in the main hall with killing intent all over her body. One was like an angel, while the other was like a demon. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, this woman doesn't have dual personality, does she? It's possible, the system said. The disciples of Ingenious Flower Palace didn't know what dual personality was. They understood their palace master's situation. As long as they saw her depressed look, they would immediately comfort her to prevent her from going berserk. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian squeezed out a smile on her pale face and said, I didn't scare you just now, did I? Ah. Jun Changshao said, it's okay, it's okay. Shi Jingxian said softly, Sect Master Jun, after taking the pill you gave me, at this point, her little face suddenly turned red and she said, I think I saw your face. Jun Changshao was startled and said, the pill was effective. Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, I only felt my vision suddenly light up, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, my surroundings were still dark. That's not right. Jun Changshao thought, since it lit up, it means that she regained her vision, which means the pill was effective. Why can't she see anything? The system said, this eye disease of hers is a bit tricky. Wait a minute. Jun Changshao suddenly thought of a very serious question and said, Palace Master Shi, you said that you lost your rationality because you were depressed? Yes. You were also depressed before? Yes. Why were you depressed? Because. Shi Jingxian lowered her head and said softly, I saw Sect Master Jun, he saw me. She was depressed. Sect Master Jun crouched in a corner and hugged his head with both hands, extremely depressed and howling in his heart, how can she be depressed after seeing my appearance? Ugly, the system said. Chapter 475. Jun Changshao wasn't ugly. In fact, he was very handsome. Then, why was Shi Jingxian so depressed that she went berserk? Because in her heart, sect leader Jun should look like that. He shouldn't look like this. Shi Jingxian, who was born with an eye disease, had never seen a human before. All her understanding was based on her own imagination. She imagined that Jun Changshao had eyes, ears, a nose, and a big head. In short, he had human characteristics, but he didn't look like a human. When Shi Jingxian regained her vision and adapted to the light, she vaguely saw Jun Changshao's appearance. When she compared it with her imagination, she realized that there was a difference and was greatly disappointed. Then, her mood became depressed and she went berserk. To be honest, Shi Jingxian, who had never seen a human before, definitely had problems with her aesthetics. Our sect leader Jun was definitely not ugly. It was just that he didn't meet her expectations. Ugly, the system's words echoed in Jun Changshao's ears. It was like a sharp sword stabbing into his heart time and time again, causing him to break down from the pain. You can laugh at me. You can humiliate me. You can say that I'm weak. But you can't doubt my handsome appearance. If it's a sin, it's an unforgivable appearance. Hearing Jun Changshao's words, the system broke down. I've never seen such a shameless person. Sect leader Jun. Shi Jingxian asked weakly, are you okay? This woman didn't realize that because she saw his appearance, she was depressed and brought millions of tons of mental damage to sect leader Jun. Phew. Jun Changshao let out a long breath and said, I'm fine. Shi Jingxian smiled. Sect leader Jun, thank you for the pill. It allowed me to see the light. Although it was only for a moment, I was very happy. She looked very cute when she smiled. She also looked like an innocent girl who didn't know anything about the world. Jun Changshao thought to himself, she has an eye disease and a strange illness. The heavens are too unfair to her. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao said, since you can see the light, there's a possibility of your illness being cured. So, you have to be full of hope for the future and face every day happily. Since he knew that she would lose her rationality if she was depressed, he would definitely encourage her with inspirational chicken soup. Yes. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, I will. Although it was only a brief moment of light and she could only vaguely see the interior of the hall, seeing Jun Changshao was enough for her to remember him forever in her heart. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian smiled and said, you didn't come to the ingenious flower palace just to deliver medicinal pills, right? Jun Changshao scratched his head and said, Palace Master Shi, my Iron Bones sect has run into some trouble recently. I hope your sect can lend a helping hand. What trouble? Shi Jingxian asked. Jun Changshao told him about Jinyang County's invasion and how they had offended 2 fourth-rate sections. What? Shi Jingxian asked in surprise, Sect Master Jun killed King Wu? Yes. Jun Changshao said, it's still 3. Shi Jingxian said in disbelief, Sect Master Jun, have you already broken through to the Martial King realm? Yes. That's not right. Shi Jingxian said, even if you really broke through, it's impossible for you to kill 3 martial kings in a row. This, Jun Changshao said, I broke through both sword and martial arts at the same time. His tone was very humble, but for some reason, when he said it, it exuded an extremely strong aura of pretentiousness. Ah. Shi Jingxian stood up and said in disbelief, Sect Master Jun is the sword and martial kings? I remember now. She said again, earlier, the elders said that there were signs of 2 martial kings descending in the sky. Could it be that Sect Master Jun is breaking through? Damn! The phenomenon caused by my breakthrough can be seen in the ingenious flower palace? If that's the case, my magnificent brilliance has already covered the entire falling star continent. Sigh. I wanted to keep a low profile and develop. Why did things go against my wishes? Since that's the case, I'll keep a high profile. Jun Changshao shook his head confidently and said coquettishly, that's right. The phenomenon in the sky just now was me breaking through. Wow! Shi Jingxian said, it's been thousands of years since the sword and martial kings appeared. Sect Master Jun is really a dragon among men for you to be able to do it. If these words came from City Lord Xia, Sect Master Jun would definitely not be surprised. However, when these words came from a cute girl, he immediately felt smug. Humans had to have some vanity. If one didn't care about anything and was unmoved by nothing, one would definitely be a saint. However, Shi Jingxian continued, Sect Master Jun killed the martial kings of 2 fourth-rate sections. They definitely won't let this matter rest. Therefore, I can only ask Palace Master Shi for help, Jun Changshao said. Shi Jingxian said, since the iron bone is in trouble, I naturally won't sit back and do nothing. This woman was also swift and decisive. She immediately went to the main hall and gathered all the elders, informing them of the matter. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue would definitely object. In their opinion, it was unwise to become enemies with 2 fourth-rate sects for the sake of an iron bone. Elders. Shi Jingxian, who was sitting at the head of the table, said, I have made up my mind. She was very strong and domineering. The elders were silent. They could only obey the palace master's orders and help the iron bone. How would they help? Not only did Shi Jingxian go personally, but she also brought thousands of disciples with her. Even the first elder and second elder had to accompany her. This lineup could be said to be luxurious. Sect Master Jun. Shi Jingxian said, I will set off now. I will reach the iron bone in half a month. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said seriously, thank you for your help, Palace Master Shi. Jun will remember this kindness in his heart. If there is a need for my iron bone in the future, I will definitely go through water and tread on fire without hesitation. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, Sect Master Jun gave me pointers on martial arts on Mount Hua and traveled thousands of miles to deliver medicine. Now that your sect is in trouble, it is only right for me to help. Jun will take his leave first. I will wait for Palace Master Shi at the sect. Jun Changshao rode on the Hurricane Wolf King and returned to the Iron Bone first. Although Ingenious Flower Palace did not send Wu Huang, he was still very relieved. As long as Palace Master Shi stood on the city gate tower, she would definitely be a deterrent. Palace Master. After watching Jun Changshao leave, Zhang Sun Fanghua could not help but say, if we go to help the Iron Bone, we will not only offend 2 fourth-rate sects, but also Xinyang County. The county chief of Xinyang County is a very ambitious person. It is not wise to offend him. Leng Xingyue said. Shi Jingxian said, this queen knows that the 2 elders are thinking for the sake of the sect, but have you ever thought that Jun Changshao is actually very ambitious? Zhang Sun Fanghua said indifferently, even if the leader of a small sect is ambitious, how can he cause any waves? Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, I am not wrong. Jun Changshao and his iron bone will definitely have an important position in the falling star continent in the future. She did not see with her eyes, but with her heart. To be exact. She was betting that she was not wrong by going to help the iron bone. She was betting on the future of the iron bone sect. One day, when he and his sect had absolute strength and gained a foothold in the falling star continent, Ingenious Flower Palace would definitely benefit from it. From being unknown to becoming the most dazzling existence in the pugilistic world, he challenged the Sacred Spring Sect, fought the evil faction of Huayang County, and now broke through to become the Sword and Martial Kings. The elders of Ingenious Flower Palace could pretend that they did not see these things, but as the palace master, Shi Jingxian had to see them. She could not let her emotions affect her decisions. She had to consider many aspects. Since Jun Changshao and his sect had great potential, she had to make friends with them. Therefore, Shi Jingxian went to help the Iron Bone sect not because she liked Sect Master Jun, but because she had her own considerations and plans. Sect Master Jun, on the way to the Iron Bone sect, Shi Jingxian said to herself, "Don't disappoint me." Chapter 476. Sect leader Jun had been invited to Miaohua Palace as she wished. When they arrived at Iron Bone, they would definitely be able to intimidate the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion. However, this was only limited to the strength of the sect. They still had to face Xinyang County. When the time came, they would send hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The 1,000 members of Wolf Rider Hall would definitely not be able to contend against them. What should I do? What should I do? On the way back to the sect, Jun Changshao was very conflicted. At this moment, he finally realized the importance of strength in numbers. If he also had a large army, he would not have to fear Xinyang County's army. The system said, the best solution is to negotiate. Jun Changshao said, "As a Huaxia citizen, I can only accompany them to the end. I will not negotiate." The system said, "What right does the host have to accompany them to the end with a 6th-grade county?" Furthermore, it added, "Qingyang City is only a small place. At worst, we can just change to another mountain and continue to develop the sect. There is no need to spend so much effort to protect it. Therefore, even if your words are very human, you are still just an emotionless machine," Jun Changshao said. When Iron Bone was in trouble, City Lord Xia led 3.6 million people and stood on the same side as him. This was his sworn brother. Now that he and his 3.6 million people were in trouble, he had to pack up and leave. How could he be worthy of the plaque in the main hall that was engraved with the words, "Unyielding Iron Bone"? Damn it! Jun Changshao said, "At worst, I will not develop the sect. I will spend a lot of money to build a large army and fight against Xinyang County." No matter the price, he had to protect Xinyang City. This was because this was his promise to Xie Guangquan. A man's promise. Understood. The system said, "The host is a real man. Don't talk nonsense." Jun Changshao said, "Hurry up and think of a way to fight against a 6th-grade Xinyang County." Didn't the host already think of a way? What the hell did I think of? The system said, "Didn't the host say that he would spend a lot of money to build a large army?" What I meant was no big deal. I meant that we'll throw caution to the wind, Jun Changshao roared. The system said, "Host, if you insist on protecting Green Sun City, from the looks of the current situation, you can go all out." Fuck. Jun Changshao said, "I asked you to come up with ideas, not to attack me. I support the host to go all out and spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and buy horses to fight against the 6th-grade counties." The system said. "Can you scram?" "I can't." If Jun Changshao could spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and buy horses, he would definitely do it. However, the problem was that he only had 2 months. There was absolutely no hope of building a legion that could contend with Xinyang County in such a short period of time. Since we can invite Miaohua Palace, why don't we invite some of the bigger counties? Jun Chengxiao's mind was suddenly enlightened. It wasn't as if there weren't any counties that were on par with Xianyang County, or even stronger, in the southwestern Yangzhou. Who does the host know? The system asked. Jun Chengxiao's eyes lit up, and he said, I know Patriarch Long. His Dragon Sun City is not to be underestimated. The system said, find Patriarch Long and ask him to be the mediator. Maybe we can reach a compromise. Jun Chengxiao was speechless. Why does this guy always want me to ask for a compromise? The system said bluntly, because the host is too weak now. If you don't ask for a compromise, it will be very difficult for you to fight against these giants. This sentence was very realistic, but also very cruel. Although sect leader Jun was already a sword and martial king, the overall strength of the sect was still very weak. Damn it! Jun Chengxiao clenched his fists tightly and said hatefully, if I had a few more years to develop, I would have made everyone bow down to me. Iron Bone. Jun Chengxiao returned gloomily. Sect leader. Just as he sat down in the main hall, Li Qingyang hurried in and said, Junior sister has awakened the innate demonic body. Innate demonic body? Jun Chengxiao's face was full of surprise. Jiang Xia walked in and reported Yao Menjing's matter in full detail. So, after Jun Chengxiao heard this, he held his chin and said, the innate demonic body is very strong? Very strong. Jiang Ye said, people with this kind of physique who cultivate the demonic path may become a demon emperor in the future. Jun Chengxiao's eyes lit up and said, the little girl has such potential. This is great news for our Iron Bone. Good news? Jiang Ye's mouth twitched and said, Sect leader, demonic cultivators are like rats on the street in the falling star continent. Yao Menjing has the innate demonic body. If news of this spread out, it will definitely bring about a huge disaster. What do you mean? Jun Chengxiao asked. Jiang Ye hurriedly told him about the demon emperor from 10,000 years ago and the demon-slaying order in the Jianghu. After Jun Chengxiao heard this, he said, it seems to be very serious. Jiang Ye said, in the past 10,000 years, 8 people with the innate demonic body have awakened. In the end, all of them died without exception. Their families and forces were also destroyed. Are demonic cultivators so evil that they are hunted down by the whole continent? Jun Chengxiao asked. Jiang Ye shook his head and said, many demonic cultivators are like evil cultivators. They do whatever they want. The reason why they are hunted down is nothing more than to make some people feel insecure. Having lived in the demon fiend sect, he could say that he saw through the mystery. The most fundamental reason why demonic cultivators had fallen like this was that the first patriarch of the demon emperor sect could ignore the rules of heaven and earth and forcefully enter the emperor level. Naturally, the various forces would not tolerate someone breaking the balance and posing a threat to them. Therefore, they joined forces to destroy him and eliminate him forever. If demonic cultivators were the same as evil cultivators, cultivating special cultivation methods could allow them to grow quickly, but it was still within a controllable range, so they would not be destroyed. Jun Chengxiao frowned and said, since they are not evil people, it is a bit too much to want to kill them all. Jiang Ye said, Sect leader, I think for the sake of Iron Bone, let Yao Menjing focus on martial arts. Are you afraid that others will find out? Jun Chengxiao asked. Jiang Ye said, there is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Once the news that Yao Menjing has the innate demonic body spreads, my Iron Bone will definitely be destroyed 100 times. Moreover, he paused and said with a serious look, those who come to destroy my sect may be first-rate sects or martial emperors. Damn! Jun Chengxiao was shocked. Facing a 6th-class county and 2 fourth-rate sects, he was ready to risk everything. Facing a first-rate sect and a martial emperor, he would definitely die. Where is Menjing now? In the room. Jun Chengxiao came to the inner courtyard and walked into Yao Menjing's room. The little girl was curled up in the corner with her head lowered. Sect leader, Yao Menjing gently raised her head, bit her lips, and said with red eyes, Are you going to drive me away? Jun Changshao said, Why should I drive you away? Yao Menjing choked and said, I have awakened the innate demonic body. I am an inauspicious person. I will bring disaster to the sect. Who said that? Jun Changshao asked. Yao Menjing buried her head between her legs and said, I had a dream. In the dream, many bad people came to the sect. Senior brother and senior sister were all lying in a pool of blood. Sect leader was covered in injuries and stood in front of me to protect me. Those bad people said that I was a devil, that I was a demon. They told sect leader not to be stubborn and not to protect me. Otherwise, they would destroy Iron Bone. It was just a dream. Jun Changshao walked over and said gently, Why take it so seriously? He squatted down, raised his hand and put it on her little head, and said, You are an Iron Bone disciple for a day, an Iron Bone disciple for a lifetime. As long as you are willing to stay here, I will not drive you away. Woo! Yao Menjing cried even more sadly and choked. In the dream, sect leader also answered the bad people like this. He said that I am an Iron Bone disciple for a day, an Iron Bone disciple for a lifetime, and no one can hurt me. Chapter 477. After Yao Menjing awakened her innate demon body, she fell into a coma for a period of time and had many strange dreams. The dream that left the deepest impression on her was that many people came to Iron Bone, saying that they were the remnants of the demonic path, a disaster, and an ominous person. Yao Menjing was extremely scared. She hid behind the sect master, her hands trembling violently. Senior brothers and senior sisters stood in front of her to protect her. Even though those bad people were strong, they were not afraid at all. Menjing. The sect master turned his back to her and said, Don't be afraid, this seat and your senior brothers are all here. In Yao Menjing's dream, sect master Jun was still so coquettish. This sentence was also full of magic, making Yao Menjing, who was originally afraid, gradually calm down. Later, the dream changed, and many senior brothers fell in a pool of blood. Although she did not witness the process, she could guess that they must have fought with the bad people. Yao Menjing raised her head with difficulty and found that the sect master was also injured, covered in blood, but still standing in front of her. At that moment, her heart was in pain, and tears flowed out uncontrollably. Jun Changshao. On the opposite side, an old man with a strong aura said in a deep voice, Hand over the remnants of the demonic path behind you, and we can let your Iron Bone go. Jun Changshao's eyes became incomparably cold, and said, This seat still has the same words, once a disciple of Iron Bone for a day, a disciple of Iron Bone for a lifetime, no one can hurt her. Although it was just a dream, the sect master's words were deeply engraved in Yao Menjing's heart. Even after waking up, she did not forget. Speaking of which, with our sect master Jun's personality, if someone really came to kill his disciple, even if he was seriously injured, it was very possible that he would fight to the end. Fortunately, it was just a dream. Jun Changshao rubbed Yao Menjing's little head and said with a smile, Little girl, don't think too much, let Lu Wancher make you a delicious meal later. He got up and left. After returning to the main hall, he gathered Jiang Ye and the others and said, No one is to spread the news about Yao Menjing's innate demon body. Yes. The disciples received the order. Li Luoqiu asked, Sect Master, did you gain anything from your trip to Miaohua Palace? Palace Master Shi will bring people here soon. Tisk tsk. Li Luoqiu smiled and said, Sect leader is really charming. You can even invite a fourth-rate sect. Jun Chang smiled and said, How could I not be charming enough to make Hall Master Li willingly join us? Right. He returned to the topic at hand and asked, What has Jinyang County been up to recently? When it came to serious matters, Li Luoqiu became serious and said, Jinyang County has been mobilizing its troops recently. It seems that they plan to attack other counties. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said, "We just conquered Huayang and Heiyang County, and now there's another movement. This Xinyang County is really restless." Shui Rengui said, "Judging from the enemy's attack route, they want to take all the counties in the southwest region and establish a larger county. The other counties just sit there and do nothing, allowing Xinyang County to expand their territory?" Jun Changshao asked. Shui Rengui said, "Xinyang County has already taken control of several important military bases. Even if the other counties have objections, they won't be able to pose a substantial threat." Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, "This is really a big problem. If it isn't solved, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Go. Call Xiang over." Before long, Long Xiang entered the main hall. When he learned that the sect master wanted to go to Longyang City to ask for help, he shook his head and said, "Sect master, Longyang City is only a city. It won't participate in worldly wars. Not even with money." "No." Jun Changshao was speechless. Forget it, forget it. I'll just take it one step at a time." Jun Changshao threw away all his worries and focused on cultivation. Yao Menjing, who had awakened her innate demonic body, also began to comprehend body metamorphose scripture. The senior brothers also did their best to teach her martial arts so that she could quickly comprehend this kind of body-strengthening mantra. As for the evil sect's martial arts, if she could cultivate it, then cultivate it. If she couldn't, then don't force it. As long as the disciple's heart was with the sect, as long as she didn't do anything unforgivable, Jun Changshao didn't care if she cultivated the evil path or the righteous path. Jiang Ye had cultivated the evil sect's martial arts before, so he could also give Yao Menjing some pointers. In short, this little lowly, who had awakened her innate demonic body, was doted on like a pearl in the palm of iron bone. On the other hand, our pitiful last disciple He Wudi was completely unloved by his grandmother. He relied on himself to cultivate and would occasionally be greeted by a happy football. However, this guy's aptitude was really strong. After cultivating for the 4th time, he broke through to martial disciple in just a few days. His speed was getting faster and faster. After comprehending body metamorphose scripture, He Wudi began to cultivate Iron Bone's various martial arts. He secretly exclaimed, "These martial arts look very ordinary, but they are all extraordinary." As expected of the birthplace of the 7 profound sage, Yi Xingqian had always believed that Jun Changshao came from the upper realm. He Wudi believed that Iron Bone was related to the 7 profound sage. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Li Qingyang, Shao Ziji, and the other inner sect disciples relied on a large number of spirit stones and spirit gathering arrays to enter Wuzong from 1st grade to 4th grade. The improvement was quite obvious. The outer sect disciples at the martial master level progressed even faster. For example, Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others. Although their aptitude wasn't high, they relied on a large number of resources to reach the peak of martial master. Because they had already adapted to the 3rd floor of the training tower and had been refining the spirit energy in their dantian, breaking through Wuzong would be easier than Li Qingyang and the others. The predecessor planted the tree, and the successor reaped the shade. The Iron Bone's various measures were gradually perfected. The disciples who joined later would definitely cultivate faster than the disciples who joined earlier. In this half a month, He Wudi also began to enter the molding room to mold his body. The first time, he was tortured for a few hours and sat on the stairs with no desire to live. The next day, he felt refreshed all over and began his self-torture journey tirelessly. As for the other disciple, Tao Yuan, he had also integrated into the Iron Bone. Other than cultivating, he would discuss the art of war with Shui Rengui and was deeply impressed. Hall Master Shui. He cupped his hands and said, "If you lead an army in southwest Yangzhou, no one will be able to defeat you." The disciples all made progress, but sect leader Jun frowned. This was because he had been cultivating for the past half a month. He had also consumed a lot of spirit stones and pills, but his realm still hadn't broken through. The system said, the host is a sword and martial king, and there are 2 spirit cores in his dantian. It's several times harder for him to break through compared to a normal martial king. Damn. Jun Changshao was speechless. This is a double-edged sword. Sect leader. Li Qingyang hurriedly reported, the palace master of Miaohua Palace has arrived with the disciples. Is that so? Jun Changshao personally went out to welcome them. He was about to enthusiastically shake hands with Shi Jingxian to show his friendliness, but when he saw Changsun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue's cold faces, he dismissed the thought and smiled. Palace Master Shi, please come in. Chapter 478. Shi Jingxian brought 2,000 disciples and 4 elders who were martial kings. It was a luxurious lineup. It was a feast for the eyes of the male Iron Bone disciples. After all, they were all beautiful women. Senior brother, the disciples of Miaohua Palace are so beautiful. It would be great if our Iron Bone had so many girls. The Iron Bone disciples gathered together and discussed in low voices. If the young masters waiting at the foot of the mountain knew that the Iron Bone disciples could admire the female disciples of Miaohua Palace up close, they would be so envious that they would vomit blood. Palace Master Shi. In the main hall, Jun Changshao said, Jun has ordered the disciples to prepare food and wine to welcome your esteemed sect. Thank you, Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian said with a smile. She was wearing a sky blue gauze dress today. After carefully dressing up, she looked even more beautiful. Jun Changshao said, if Shenyang County invades, they will definitely attack Qingyang City. After dinner, please follow me to Qingyang City, Palace Master Shi. He would never leave Miaohua Palace in the sect. After all, there were secrets that should not be known. Shi Jingxian said. Before long, the fragrant dishes were prepared. She led the elders to the cafeteria. The eyes of the female Iron Bone disciples who had been here earlier were shining. They had eaten Lu Wancher's dishes once, and the taste was still lingering in their minds. Zhang Sun Fanghua and the others kept their heads up, looking cold and aloof. After they were seated, some disciples picked up their chopsticks anxiously. Zhang Sun Fanghua reprimanded softly, how many days have you not eaten? A female disciple whispered, Grand Elder, the dishes made by the Iron Bone chef are simply delicacies. Delicacies? Zhang Sun Fanghua snorted coldly. As an old woman who had lived for hundreds of years, what kind of delicacies had she not eaten? She picked up her chopsticks and took a bite. As a sharp-tongued person, the great elder had already thought of a lot of vicious comments in his heart. Whoosh! Whoosh! The disciples of Miaohua Palace raised their chopsticks. Zhang Sun Fanghua didn't reprimand her, because right now, she was slowly savoring the food in her mouth, her expression changing again and again. She had eaten many delicacies, but after swallowing this dish, she concluded that what she had eaten before were all radishes and cabbages. The lines that they had thought of were washed away by the delicious food and were replaced with compliments. Food was the most important thing for the people. Unless one was an expert who could achieve inedia, it would be very difficult to resist the delicious taste on the tip of the tongue. How is it? Leng Xingyue said. Zhang Sun Fanghua suppressed the impact of the food and said, you can try it. Leng Xingyue raised her chopsticks and ate a mouthful of food. Her beautiful face was instantly filled with shock. Clearly, she was shocked by Lu Wancher's food. Everyone. Jun Changshao said with a smile, sorry for making a fool of myself in front of you. The corners of Zhang Sun Fanghua and the others' mouths twitched. Even this kind of delicacy can be described as plain tea, what can we eat? Just as Leng Xingyue picked up a mouthful of food and was about to eat it, she caught sight of Elder Wei, who had just walked in through the door. Whoosh! She jumped up and slammed her chopsticks on the table. Her beautiful eyes flickered with anger as she said, Wei Qingfeng. Her voice was very loud and alarmed everyone. Jun Changshao looked up and saw Ling Xingyue staring at Elder Wei. He couldn't help but think, is that Elder Wei's name? He had joined the sect for a while, but he didn't even know his name. He was really incompetent as the sect master. Elder Wei looked at Ling Xingyue in surprise. After a while, he smiled gently and said, so you've joined Miaohua Palace. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. You know this woman? Yes. Elder Wei replied, she's my 35th ex-lover. Ex-lover? 35th. Sect Master Jun was dumbfounded. Elder Wei. You've given me 35 bowls of dog food when I'm caught off guard. Ling Xingyue's beautiful eyes were still filled with anger, but there was also a trace of undetectable resentment. This complicated gaze was enough to prove that she and Elder Wei had an unforgettable love story. Wei Qingfeng. She said coldly, facts have proven that I, Ling Xingyue, can still live a good life without you. This is not the place to talk, Elder Wei said. What? Ling Xingyue's expression was cold as she said, are you afraid that others will find out that you, a man, have broken your promise? Elder Wei fell silent. What a joke. Ling Xingyue said self-deprecatingly, I've been bewitched by a heartless man like you for decades just because you said, if you bloom, a cool breeze will come. If you bloom, a cool breeze will come. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched as he imagined a scene. It was a picturesque peach forest. The young Elder Wei stood in front of the young Ling Xingyue, holding a peach branch in his hand. He said in an extremely gentle voice, little sister Xingyue, if you bloom, a cool breeze will come. Oh my, oh my. He's so fucking hipster, so fucking mushy. Elder Wei said bitterly, Xingyue, do you still hate me that much? I hate you to the core. Ling Xingyue gritted her teeth, and the hatred in her beautiful eyes intensified. Elder Wei didn't say anything. He turned around and walked out of the cafeteria. How could Ling Xingyue let this go? She didn't even eat the delicious food and chased after him. When the two of them left, a disciple of Ingenious Flower Palace whispered, Grand Elder, is this old man the man who hurt the second elder the most? Zhang Sun Fanghua said coldly, he's a flirtatious man who deceived the second elder of her feelings for decades. Chapter 479. Elder Wei and Ling Xingyue were chatting by the lotus pond while sect leader Jun released his spiritual senses to eavesdrop. He wasn't eavesdropping, but learning. As the saying went, there was bound to be someone to learn from. In terms of relationships, Jun Changshao was like a blank piece of paper. There were too many things that he needed to consult Elder Wei about. However, when he heard those mushy words, he retreated in defeat. He couldn't learn. He couldn't learn. Sect leader Jun retracted his spiritual senses and said, Palace Master Shi, eat more. Elder Wei's heart ached. You told her to eat more. In comparison, the system's words made sense. She deserved to be single forever. Yes. Shi Jingxian nodded lightly and slowly tasted the food. Although the food was delicious, she maintained the demeanor of a sect leader. The disciples of Miaohua Palace were the same. At this moment, they really wanted to wolf down all the delicacies, but because they were women, they had to maintain their composure and not let others laugh at them. After the meal, Elder Wei and Ling Xingyue were still chatting by the pond. However, the atmosphere had eased a lot. Jun Changshao said in admiration, Second Elder wanted to kill someone just now, but she can calm down now. Elder Wei must have coaxed her a lot. Sect leader Jun, Shi Jingxian said, when are we going to Qingyang City? Let's go now, Jun Changshao said. After the meal, wouldn't it be better to find a place with a good environment to chat with others? There was really no hope. Jun Changshao brought Shi Jingxian and the disciples of Miaohua Palace to Qingyang City. Ling Xingyue stayed in Iron Bone for the time being. It seemed like she wanted to completely resolve her feelings of many years. So many beautiful women in their prime flooded into Qingyang City, instantly bringing a huge visual impact to the citizens of the city. When Xie Guangquan learned that the person who came was the palace master of Miaohua Palace, he hurriedly welcomed her personally and was very enthusiastic. Of course. He also admired sect leader Jun in his heart. He could even invite a fourth-rate sect and let them bring so many disciples and upper echelons. How powerful was he? Or could it be that sect master Jun and palace master Shi have already fallen in love? After settling Shi Jingxian and the group of disciples, Xie Guangquan smiled and cupped his hands. Sect master Jun, when will this Xie be able to attend your wedding? Wedding banquet? Jun Changshao was at a loss. Xie Guangquan smiled and said, you even managed to invite the palace master of Miaohua Palace. I'm afraid your relationship is only lacking a wedding. Don't spout nonsense. Jun Changshao said, palatial master Shi and I are just friends. Xie Guangquan's face showed an I understand expression, and then he smiled and said, understood, understood. Jun Changshao knew that he had misunderstood, but he was too lazy to explain. He then said goodbye and returned to Iron Bone. There was still more than a month left before the battle exemption token expired. He wanted to take this opportunity to cultivate and strive to break through to rank 2. Even though he was a sword king and martial king, and he had 2 spirit cores, which made his cultivation progress extremely slow, as long as he could make substantial improvements, his battle prowess would soar. Sect Master Jun had just returned to the sect when Leng Xingyu left with red eyes. The anger around her had completely dissipated. He went back and forth to Qingyang City after a meal. Elder Wei solved his relationship problems just like that. He was indeed an expert. Jun Changshao hurried to the herb garden. Elder Wei was currently sitting in a gazebo, looking at the sky with a worried expression and sighing. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao walked over and said, are you all right? Sigh. Elder Wei sighed and said, I've owed too much in my life. It was probably romantic debt. Sect Master. Elder Wei said, what's the matter? Jun Changshao sat down and said seriously, I want to discuss the art of picking up girls with Elder Wei. Picking up girls? It's the art of picking up girls. Picking up girls? Discussing the relationship between men and women. Elder Wei understood and shook his head. The most painful thing in this world is the relationship between men and women. Once you fall into it, you will be consigned to eternal damnation. What's the point of discussing it? If I can be like Elder Wei and have so many old lovers, I'm willing to try no matter how painful it is, Sect Master Jun said seriously. Elder Wei's mouth twitched. Sect Master, you still have to develop the sect. You must not be infatuated with the relationship between men and women. Fuck. Am I going to be lonely for the rest of my life as a sect master? Also. Elder Wei continued, if you don't handle matters of the heart well, there will be endless trouble in the future. This was definitely the most valuable experience for someone who had experienced it. Seeing how serious he was, Sect Master Jun was a little afraid, so he gave up on asking about the art of picking up girls and went back to the topic at hand. He asked about the recent medicinal herbs. Many of the medicinal herbs for the Qi Gathering Pill and Martial Master Pill had been refined. With the continuous supply of heaven and earth attributes, the spiritual energy contained in the medicinal herbs was also stronger than the previous batch. Sect Master. Elder Wei stood in an open space outside the herb garden and said, I plan to continue expanding the herb garden and plant more medicinal herbs. Okay. Jun Changshao approved. During this period of time, Sun Bukong and the other members of the medicinal hall had already gained a lot of experience under Elder Wei's meticulous guidance. There was no problem in maintaining a larger herb garden together. Of course. Sect Master Jun wouldn't always plant the medicinal herbs needed for the Qi Gathering Pill and Martial Master Pill. After the expansion, he would plant more varieties in preparation for the future. After returning from the herb garden, Jun Changshao first cultivated in the spirit gathering array for 4 hours, then cultivated on the first, second, and third floors of the training pagoda for 2 hours. Night fell. He returned to the study and found little Long Long curled up in its nest, already asleep. It can't be hibernating again, right? Jun Changshao muttered as he opened the intermediate store. He hadn't looked at the system store for a while. He didn't finish looking at it after it refreshed last time. His contribution points had overflowed, but he only hurriedly bought a bottle of beginner-grade spiritual medicine. Is there anything else good? Jun Changshao continued to look, but he was disappointed. There was nothing worth buying. There are still more than 4,000 contribution points. Let's try refreshing again. As he said that, he fiercely pulled down. Ding! Sect contribution points, 45445,000. The items in the store were replaced once again. Jun Changshao looked at them seriously until he saw the second row of items and jumped up from his seat. Under normal circumstances, anything that could make him so excited most likely had something to do with guns. However, it wasn't a gun, it was a cannon. It was called Magic Modified Schneider 1897 75mm Field Cannon. Jun Changshao exclaimed, there really is a cannon. He clicked on the detailed introduction item, Magic Modified Field Cannon. Introduction, Type 1897 75mm Field Cannon, the world's first cannon equipped with a recoil device. It shone brilliantly in the First World War and was later magically modified to be suitable for the world of high martial arts. Advantages, extremely long range, extremely powerful. Disadvantages, extremely expensive crystal nucleus, and requires at least a high-grade crystal nucleus. Price, 2,000 contribution points. Damn it! After seeing the introduction, Jun Changshao exclaimed, it's real, an Italian cannon. However, 2,000 contribution points, that's way too expensive. The system said, if you think it's too expensive, the host can choose not to buy it. How could he not buy it? Jinyang County was about to kill their way over. With this kind of field cannon in the city, once it was fired, it would definitely blow up the people on the other side, causing their scalp to go numb. Buy. Buy. Chapter 480. Ding. The host has spent 2,000 contribution points and obtained Magic Modified Field Cannon X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding. Sect contribution points, 25445,000. With a thought, Jun Changshao summoned the field cannons he had bought. The muzzle was very long and had 2 wheels. The extended tail was tightly attached to the ground, which was obviously used to reduce the recoil. The tail was attached to the ground, which should be used to reduce the recoil. The design of this magic modified field cannon was exactly the same as the ones in Italy in the TV series. At the bottom of the cannon, there was a fist-sized groove, which should be the place to gather the cannonballs. Swish! Jun Changshao took out a high-grade crystal core and pulled the energy into the groove. The gray cannonball icon began to light up. However, after all the energy was transferred, only 1/3 of the cannonball icon lit up. Damn! Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. To gather 1 cannonball, do I need 3? The greater the power, the greater the consumption. The system said. Okay. Jun Changshao said, I hope it won't disappoint me. He took out 2 more crystal cores and transferred them all in. Only then did he successfully charge 1 cannonball. There were 2 cannonball icons on the cannon, which meant that it could hold 2 cannonballs. Jun Changshao was eager to test the power, so he did not charge the second cannonball. Instead, he called Xiao Ziji and the others and directly pushed it to the back of the mountain. As long as they bought a new gun, they would come here to test it. It was like a shooting range. Sect Master. Xiao Ziji said in surprise, is this a gun? Oh my god. Su Xiaoma also came. He walked around the field cannon and said in surprise, "The muzzle is so big, the power must be terrifying." After Jun Changshao checked it, he locked onto the small mountain in the distance and clapped his hands. "You will know when you fire it." "Can this disciple do it?" Su Xiaoma's eyes suddenly became hot. "Yes." Jun Changshao said, "Go." Su Xiaoma walked over, beaming with joy. He stood in front of the field cannon and asked, "Sect leader, how do I use it?" Jun Changshao said, "Press the red button." When he said this, he had already retreated several hundred meters away. As for Xiao Ziji, who had experienced being thrown into trees many times, he also avoided it far away. Su Xiaoma did not realize that he was completely focused on the field cannon. He rubbed his hands and pressed the red button that was more eye-catching. Boom! The peaceful iron bone suddenly emitted a loud boom, causing the ground and buildings to tremble. Because the sound was too loud, the birds in the distance were shocked and fell to the ground. The animals were also frightened and ran around in fear. "What's going on?" The disciples who heard the buzzing sound looked at the back of the mountain in shock. They saw billowing white smoke rising in the distance and gradually converging into a mushroom shape. "Go! Let's go take a look." Everyone hurriedly rushed to the back of the mountain. As soon as they entered, they saw the field cannons spewing out thick smoke. The sect leader and senior brother Xiao stood in the distance. The two of them were dumbfounded. Because they were too close, their ears were buzzing from the sound of the cannons. Someone exclaimed, "Senior brother Su fell." Su Xiaoma fell on the grass beside the field cannon. White foam was coming out of his mouth, and his body was twitching violently. He was beaming with joy just now, but now he was like a bear. The contrast was too great. Of course. Su Xiaoma was not shaken by the recoil, but by the sound of the cannons. It was very tragic. "Quick! Quick! Carry him to the medicine hall for emergency treatment." The disciples rushed forward like a swarm of bees, carried Su Xiaoma and ran towards the medicine hall. "Sect leader." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. What happened to junior brother Su? Jun Changshao, who had just adapted to the sound of the cannons, tilted his ears and shouted, "What did you say?" This was a temporary loss of hearing due to the vibrations. It was not just him. Xiao Ziji also lost his hearing. This situation lasted for more than half a day. The disciples had to shout when they talked to the two of them. Of course, the power of the field cannon was still very terrifying. The mountain 40 li away was not only blown to pieces, but it also created a circular crater that was hundreds of zhang wide. How was this a cannon? It was almost comparable to a missile. After Jun Changxiao's ears recovered, he stood at the edge of the crater and grinned. Why should I be afraid of Xinjiang County? He had absolute confidence that if he fired the cannon, it would definitely scare the army of Xinjiang County to the point of wetting their pants. The field cannon was very powerful, but its weakness was also obvious. It was too loud. If it was set up in the city, the sound of the cannon could make the people without cultivation vomit blood. It can be used to deter the enemy. Unless it is absolutely necessary, it is better not to use it. Jun Changshao murmured. With the powerful field cannon, he was originally worried about how to face sect leader Jun of Xinjiang County. However, he immediately relaxed. With the Italian cannon in hand, you guys are coming. After a routine cultivation, sect leader Jun returned to the study and found that the little dragon was still sleeping. This made him certain that the little fellow had hibernated for the second time. I wonder what changes it will undergo when it wakes up. After the first hibernation, the little dragon's body was much bigger. It could even activate its battle form and directly oppress the rank 2 Martial King Jiangya. Jun Changshao was looking forward to the little dragon's second awakening. Schwa. He opened the shop again. Jun Changshao continued to flip through the book. His luck this time wasn't too good. The only useful item was the Italian cannon. There were no martial techniques, equipment, or recipes. The system was speechless. A powerful field cannon that can help the host fight the army of Jinyang County head-on is called bad luck? Jun Changshao ignored it and continued browsing. When he saw the last item, his eyes lit up. It was a very ordinary sackcloth bag with the words Weapon Dispelling Qiankuan Bag written on it. He clicked on the description. Item, Weapon Dispelling Qiankuan Bag. Description, a special summoning treasure. There are spirit beans in it. After using it, one can transform the beans into soldiers. Advantage, it can store 100,000 spirit beans. Not only can it transform into soldiers, but it can also be boiled, stewed, or fried. It tastes very good. Disadvantage, the spirit beans can transform into soldiers. If the user dies, there will be one less spirit bean used. Price, 1,000 contribution points. Grade, Saint rank, high, Jun Changshao said in surprise, this seems pretty good too. It's not just good. The system said, it's practically tailor-made for the host's current dangerous situation. Jun Changshao's biggest problem now was Jinyang County and the two fourth-rate sections Shi Jingxian could deal with the sects with her help, but they couldn't fight against a colossus like Jinyang County. Now that he had the field cannon and the weapon dispelling Qiankuan bag, he could definitely use them to wrestle with Jinyang County. As for the various ways to eat spirit beans in the description, unless one's brain was kicked by a donkey, they would definitely not try them. Buy. Sect leader Jun spent 1,000 contribution points to buy the weapon dispelling Qiankuan bag. Then, he opened the shop and spent 500 contribution points to buy 5 AK-47s that were on cooldown. It was very difficult for guns to cause substantial damage to high-level experts, but if the disciples were equipped with them, they would be very effective against the army of Jinyang County. I have no more contribution points. Looking at the remaining 1,000 points, Sect leader Jun suddenly felt a sense of insecurity. Chapter 481. After buying Jia Bing's Qiankuan bag, Jun Changshao took it out. This thing was similar to a numbing bag, but there was a space inside it. It was similar to a spatial item and stored many fingernail-sized spirit beans. Can it be eaten? He took out one and held it in his hand. Jun Changshao's eyes flashed with surprise as he sensed the faint spiritual energy that permeated the air. There were only 100,000 spirit beans. If there were any casualties, every spirit bean used would be one less spirit bean. Sect leader Jun would definitely not be willing to eat them. The system said, maybe it has a miraculous effect. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, if you want to use it, you have to use it on the blade. It's a waste to eat it. How can it be used on the blade? In his opinion, if the Jinyang County led an army, he would use the beans to create soldiers and fight them to the end. However, how powerful would the soldiers be if they were made from beans? Jun Changshao went to the training ground of the Wolf Rider Hall. He stood on the mountain peak and took out Jia Bing's Qiankuan bag. What is the sect leader doing? The members of the Wolf Rider Hall who appeared on the training ground looked up with puzzled faces. Is he here to check on our training? Everyone, you must perform well. Don't disappoint the sect leader. Okay. Everyone shouted in unison, their eyes shining with excitement. During the period when the battle exemption card was in effect, they had persisted in cultivating and training. Not only had their realms increased, but their coordination had also become more and more perfect. Now, the 1,000 Wolf Riders had an average cultivation of a 7th grade martial master. There was still a month before the battle exemption card expired. At this speed, they could reach the 9th grade martial master level. They could break through so quickly because Jun Changshao gave them a lot of qi gathering pills and natural spirit stones. In short, in order to face the upcoming storm, they had to use all their resources to create the strongest Wolf Rider Hall. Magic beans to create soldiers. Jun Changshao stood on the mountain peak and shouted. Then, he used his mind to control Jia Bing's Qiankuan bag. With a wave of his hand, spirit beans flew out. What is that? The members of the Wolf Rider Hall were dumbfounded. Bang! 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 The spirit beans made contact with the ground, producing a light sound. Thick white smoke rose and covered the area. Whoosh, a cool breeze blew, and the smoke dissipated. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall widened their eyes. Tens of thousands of soldiers wearing bright white armor and holding long weapons appeared out of thin air. Their figures were straight and their gazes were cold. They gave off the feeling of divine soldiers and heavenly generals. Jun Changshao was stunned. The martial Dao aura emitted by the soldiers transformed from spiritual beings was actually at the martial master level. The most coquettish thing. Sect leader Jun could feel that he could control it as he pleased. Turn! He muttered in his heart. The 10,000 soldiers standing below turned around in unison and faced the mountain he was on. Their actions were so synchronized that they looked like guards of honor who had undergone strict training. Shui Rengui walked over and asked in surprise, Sect leader, where did these soldiers come from? Jun Changshao did not explain. Instead, he smiled and said, it's alright, right? Very strong. Shui Rengui said seriously. Very strong was not referring to the cultivation of the soldiers, but from the way they stood and moved, it was obvious that they had received very professional training. Come. Jun Changshao said heroically, you command the Wolf Rider Hall, and I command these soldiers. Let's have a military exercise. Shui Rengui nodded. On the training ground. 1,000 wolf riders stood in the west, while 10,000 spiritual being soldiers stood in the east. The two sides were facing each other. Shua! Shui Rengui waved the war flag. Zhong Yi shouted and led the members to charge over on the hurricane wolves. These 2 months of training were indeed remarkable. The strength of the wolf riders was definitely much stronger than before. If they were to fight with the Tiger Army commanded by Tao Yuan again, let alone 30,000, even 50,000 would be easily crushed. Attack! With a thought, Jun Changshao issued an order. Ta! 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 Under the control of the 10,000 spiritual being soldiers, they all held spears and strode forward. During the process, they changed continuously and finally formed an arc-shaped square formation. This. Shui Rengui was dumbfounded. A team of 10,000 people could change frequently and finally arrange a formation suitable for fighting against cavalry. This was incredible. If it were him, he would definitely not be able to do it. No matter how perfect the cooperation was, it would take time to complete. There would be continuous changes during the movement and it was easy to make mistakes, causing the formation to become messy. Jun Changshao could do something that a 5-star general could not do. This was because although the 10,000 spiritual being soldiers seemed to be humans, they were in fact marionettes. As long as he had a thought, they would strictly execute the next action. Standing on the mountain peak and looking down, not only could he perfectly control the 10,000 soldiers, but he could also make the most timely arrangements according to the enemy's situation. Shui Rengui had to use the war flag to coordinate the overall situation. On the other hand, Jun Changshao seemed to be playing a strategy game. He could control the soldiers with a click of the mouse. There was no comparison at all. Shush! Shush! At this moment, he was praying in his heart that Jinyang County did not intend to swallow Qingyang County. Otherwise, as a disciple of the sect and a general of the county, he would be in a difficult position. Unfortunately, Tao Yuan, who had lost his memory, did not know that Jinyang County had already planned to swallow Qingyang County. Moreover, he had sent an army to fight. Chapter 482. Sect Master. Shui Rengui exclaimed, these soldiers are like heavenly soldiers. Jun Changshao said, if we have more soldiers, What are our chances of winning against Jinyang County? If we have about 100,000 well-trained soldiers, we might not be able to fight Jinyang County head-on, but we can definitely defend Qingyang City. Shui Rengui said seriously. Is that so? Jun Changshao laughed. The soldiers transformed from spirit beings could be controlled at will and could even use martial techniques. They were definitely very powerful and gave him more confidence to fight Jinyang County head-on. Continue to train the Wolf Rider Hall. Don't slack off. Jun Changshao ordered. Yes. Shui Rengui was very puzzled. Tao Yuan was captured and Iron Bone joined. Why was there no movement from Jinyang County? He didn't know that it was because of the battle exemption token. After returning to the Sect Master Jun continued to cultivate. He had to break through to second-grade sword and martial king within a month. At this moment, he was not worried at all, nor was he conflicted at all. He was even looking forward to Jinyang County leading the army and killing them. He wanted to show them what a real elite army was. 1 month later. The battle exemption token lost its effect. Jinyang County gradually recovered their paused memories. Strange. In the secret chamber of the Spirit Stream Sect, Wu Huang, who had just returned, was puzzled. Why am I in the sect? When the chaotic memories gradually came back to him, he suddenly remembered that he was ordered by the Patriarch to go to Qingyang County and find the murderer of Zhuang Yong. However, when he used the power of heaven and earth to form a giant hand and was about to kill him, a stream of light came down from the sky. Then, the more Wu Huang thought about it, the clearer it became. The more he thought about it, the more his hair stood on end. At that time, the power that came down was very terrifying. It was so terrifying that he was like a weak ant. When he Wudi appeared from the void, his cultivation was still rapidly degenerating. Even so, it was still not something a martial king of the falling star continent could contend against. This spirit stream sect expert should be glad that when the other party fell, his cultivation had greatly degenerated. Otherwise, he would have definitely died on the spot. That looks like a person. Could it be the reinforcements that guy invited? Or perhaps there are even stronger existences in Jinyang County? Wu Huang looked fearful. Grand Elder. At this moment, the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect transmitted his voice, please come to the main hall quickly. It turned out that Wu Huang was the Grand Elder of the Spiritual Stream Sect. No wonder his cultivation was so strong. In the main hall, the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect, who was in his 70s, sat at the head of the table. There was anger on his aged face. There were also many elders seated in the lower seats. However, there was still a slight gap between their strength and the upper echelons of Miaohua Palace. Patriarch. Elder Shui and Elder Zhuang died in the Azure Sun County. They must be severely punished. An elder said with a cold face. Another elder said coldly, although we don't know who did it, since he died in Azure Sun County, let the entire county be buried with him. The death of 2 martial kings infuriated the upper echelons of the Spirit Stream Sect. Just as they were filled with righteous indignation, the Grand Elder walked in. Everyone stood up and saluted him. Patriarch. The Grand Elder sat down and said solemnly, I'm afraid there's an expert with unfathomable strength in Jinyang County. Everyone was surprised. The Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect asked, why do you say that? The Grand Elder hurriedly reported that he was attacked in the wilderness. The Patriarch and elders fell silent. Even a martial emperor would not be able to dodge this sudden attack. His strength must be terrifying. Could it be Wu Sheng? The Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect frowned. The Grand Elder shook his head and said, it's hard to say. Just as the Patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect was about to speak, a disciple walked in and said, Patriarch, there's a letter from the county governor. Oh. He hurriedly took the letter and opened it. After reading it, he said in a deep voice, the county governor wants to attack Azure Sun County. He wants the Spirit Stream Sect to send people with him. Without hearing the Grand Elder's words, everyone would definitely agree. Now that there was a suspected expert at Wuxing's level in Azure Sun County, everyone hesitated. Sigh. The patriarch of the Spirit Stream Sect sighed and said, since the Spirit Stream Sect is betting on Jinyang County, we naturally have to cooperate. He said, Third Elder, Fourth Elder, bring a few hundred disciples with you. Yes. The Third Elder and Fourth Elder accepted the order and led the disciples down the mountain. As for the Grand Elder, he chose to continue cultivating in seclusion because he was afraid of the expert who ambushed him. From the looks of it, He Wudi had not only saved sect leader June but also successfully restrained an expert at Wu Huang's level. After the battle exemption token lost its effect, the people of Jinyang County naturally remembered Tao Yuan's defeat and capture. Huayang County and Heyang County had been conquered, and Azure Sun County had lost a talented young general and an elite division. It was definitely difficult for them to accept. The county governor immediately ordered to mobilize 300,000 soldiers to attack Azure Sun County. Not only did he notify the Spirit Stream Sect, but he also notified the Duanshui Pavilion. They also sent 2 Martial King elders and a few hundred disciples. 2 days later, everyone gathered in a certain city in Heyang County. The 300,000 soldiers and many experts majestically charged toward Azure Sun County. Sect leader. In Iron Bone, Li Luoqiu received the news and said with a frown, Jinyang County's army will arrive at Azure Sun City in 3 days. They're finally here. Jun Changshao hurriedly dispatched the Wolf Rider Hall and disciples to Iron Bone City as quickly as possible. As for Tao Yuan, who had recovered his memories, he locked himself in a room with a complicated gaze. I was captured. I became a disciple of Iron Bone. Who can tell me what's going on? Jun Changshao knew that Tao Yuan needed time to accept reality, so he did not disturb him. He left the sect's matters to Li Luoqiu and headed toward Azure Sun City. Sect leader Jun, on the city gate tower, Shi Jingxian said in surprise, your aura seems to be stronger than before. In the past month, Jun Changshao had been cultivating in seclusion. Relying on enough natural spirit stones and qi gathering pills, he finally entered the second stage from the first stage. Before coming to Azure Sun City, he specially went to the training room to test his strength. His punch was 4 million jin. Every time a superior martial king broke through one stage, his strength would increase by 500,000 jin. This guy directly reached 1 million jin. It could be said that he was quite valiant. The system once said, the host is strong enough to fight an advanced peak martial king. It was understandable for a lower level to fight against someone of a higher level. As a martial king, he was able to fight against a martial king at the peak of the martial king realm. This was the Sword Martial King. This was the Dual Spirit Core. Cultivation was much slower than normal martial cultivation, but as long as it increased, even if it was only by one stage, it would be even more explosive. Ah! Jun Changshao scratched his head and said, recently, I have a new understanding of martial arts. My strength has increased a little. Only a little. Shi Jingxian asked suspiciously. She, who could not see the light with her eyes, was very sensitive in her mind. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao said, I have received news that Jinyang County has sent 300,000 soldiers. There are also experts from 2 sects accompanying them. He would not tell her about his breakthrough. After all, it had only been a few months since he became a dual martial king. If he advanced by another stage, it would definitely arouse unnecessary suspicion. Such a large force. Shi Jingxian pondered for a while and said, Sect Master Jun, my Miaohua Palace can help your sect with the 2 sections. As for the 300,000 soldiers, there is nothing I can do. Jun Changshao said, Palace Master Shi only needs to hold back the experts from the 2 sections. Leave the rest to my Iron Bone. Jinyang County is a large county that is good at fighting. Sect Master Jun, Are you confident that you can fight against them? Shi Jingxian asked curiously. Jun Changshao put his hands behind his back and looked at the battlefield outside. His eyes were cold as he said, "Not only am I confident, but I will also make those who invade my Azure Sun City pay the most painful price." His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. It could be seen that in the near future, there would be a world-shocking battle of slaughter. Chapter 483. A few days later. The famous general of southwest Yangzhou, Bai Ruihu, led the White Tiger Army and arrived at Qingyang City. What did it mean to have 300,000 soldiers? Looking from the tower of Qingyang City, it was like a wave that couldn't be retreated. These soldiers cultivated martial arts. When they released their cultivation, it was as if they could shake half of the sky. Although the people in the city didn't see the army, they trembled in fear when they felt the cold aura from afar. In front of this battle-hardened army, ordinary people were like weeds. Even Xie Guanquan, who was standing on the tower, couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he saw the soldiers. If sect leader Jun wasn't in charge of guarding the city, he wouldn't have the courage to face such a huge army. Shui Rengui was calm. As a 5-star general, he had seen millions of soldiers, let alone 300,000. Tisk, tisk. Su Xiaoma sat on the city wall and grinned. It looks scary. There are so many soldiers. If we go in and kick them, we can definitely kill many of them. Li Fei's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. He wanted to rush into the army and use his golden right leg to kill to his heart's content. Crack. Tian Qi clenched his fist and said, "I can't wait." For the past 3 months, they had been cultivating with spirit stones and energy-gathering pills. They had improved a lot and wanted to test their strength on the soldiers of Xinjiang County. Shui Rengui wasn't afraid because he had seen the world. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei weren't afraid because they had been trained to be brave. Even if they were in a desperate situation, they wouldn't change their expressions. This was the Iron Bone Sect's disciples. This was the Iron Bone Sect. Those standing on the tower weren't just the inner disciples. There were also outer disciples, such as Song Xianzhou, Lin Jiangheng, Li Tiantian, Cui Bujian, Sima Zhongda, and others. Other than a small group of disciples who were in charge of daily affairs, everyone who could come was here. He Wudi was here too. He was now a grade 6 martial master. He had lost his memories 3 times and had even wasted 3 times of his cultivation. To be able to reach such a level in just over a month, as expected of the final disciple of unyielding sect. As for our sect leader Jun, he was still lying on the city gate tower with a charming smile on his face. I didn't expect Xinjiang County to send so many people. Looking at the large army outside, Zhang Sun Fanghua frowned. In her opinion, the reason why Xinjiang County sent such a large army over was to take over Azure Sun County and expand their territory. Leng Xingyue said indifferently, even if we can hold back 2 fourth-rate sects, Iron Bone will definitely not be able to defend Azure Sun City. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, Elder Leng, don't jump to conclusions. Although the Iron Bone sect couldn't be compared to the Xinjiang County, she still trusted sect master Jun more. Outside the city, Bai Ruihu, who was dressed in battle armor, rode a tall horse and stood in the middle of the army. His eyes were sharp. He was the highest commander of the White Tiger Legion and one of the 10 great generals of southwest Yangzhou. He definitely had a strong aura of a veteran. A general of the same rank as Tao Yuan looked at the row of Iron Bone disciples on the city gate tower and sneered, defending the city with so few people, are you looking down on our White Tiger Legion? General Tao is the same. The young general beside him said indifferently, he actually lost to such a low-grade city and even became a captive. In my opinion. Someone said, General Tao has probably surrendered. Tao Yuan was the youngest general in the White Tiger Legion and was very talented in military affairs. Naturally, many people didn't like him. Now that he was a captive and there was no news of him, they would definitely hit him while he was down. Even Bai Ruehu, who was furious on the surface when he heard that Tao Yuan lost the battle and was captured, was actually relieved. Recently, the county governor admired this person very much. This made him very worried that Tao Yuan would replace him in the future. Now that Tao Yuan lost the battle and became a captive, it would be difficult for the county governor to put him in an important position. As expected. Just as Shuiren Gui said, Bai Ruehu was a narrow-minded person. Tao Yuan was a rising star in the military world. Even if he didn't lose to Jun Changshao, he would definitely be obstructed by Bai Ruehu in the future. General Bai. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect walked over and said with a serious expression, "The one standing in front of the city gate tower is the palace master of Miaohua Palace." Bai Ruehu said in surprise, "A fourth-rate sect in Tianin County? Why is she in Qingyang City?" The third elder said, "Maybe she's a helper from Qingyang County." Bai Ruehu sneered and said, "Could it be that Miaohua Palace wants to get involved in a secular war?" What he said. As if the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion weren't involved in a secular war. The third elder said solemnly, "Miaohua Palace's strength is not to be underestimated, especially that young new palace master. She's even called an extraordinary woman." Although the Spirit Stream sect and Miaohua Palace were of the same level, their overall strength was much weaker. Not to mention, standing next to Shi Jingxian were two peak martial kings. If the martial kings sent by the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion dared to clamor in front of the city gate, they could teach them a lesson in a matter of minutes. This time, the Truyang County had sent experts from the two sects to intimidate them with their strength. In the end, the other side had an even stronger existence, so it was meaningless. Bai Ruehu didn't care. These martial kings were just icing on the cake. To truly take down Qingyang City and the entire Qingyang County, he still had to rely on his own army. "Thank you, Governor." He channeled his energy into his dantian and shouted, "For the sake of the people in the city, you should give up resisting." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a stream of light shot toward him. The fourth elder of the Spirit Stream sect flew up and formed a defensive wall in front of him, blocking the bullet. What kind of hidden weapon was that? The fourth elder landed and stabilized his body. His eyes were filled with surprise. If he hadn't fully activated his spiritual senses, he wouldn't have been able to accurately capture the stream of light with his naked eye, let alone form a defensive wall to block it. On the sentry post, Xiao Ziji put down his AWM sniper rifle and shook his head helplessly. With a martial king around, it would be difficult for him to hurt the enemy. Jun Changshao stood up from the roof and said with a smile, "Listen up, Green Sun City is now under the protection of my Iron Bone faction." Iron Bone? Bai Ruehu and the other generals sneered. The fourth elder of the Gue Yuan sect said in a deep voice, "A mere Iron Bone dares to get involved in a secular war. What a joke." Jun Changshao flew out with the cloud-treading steps and landed in front of the army of 300,000. He pointed at the martial king and said, "Old man, you seem to be looking down on Iron Bone. Come, let's fight." One person declaring war in front of so many people. How arrogant was that? The fourth elder of the Gue Yuan sect said in disdain, "Me? Are you the sect master of Iron Bone, Jun Changshao?" Just as he finished speaking, his expression changed. That was because the young man was emitting a special aura, which turned into a powerful pressure and pressed down on him. The fourth elder wanted to dodge, but under the pressure of Ling Jian's sword, not only did his movements slow down, he was also gradually frozen in place. In the end, he couldn't move at all. "Old man." Jun Changshao raised his hand and a red light gathered at his fingertips. He said coldly, "This is the result of looking down on Iron Bone." Whoosh! The 7 mysterious sunglow break was used and shot out in a beam of light. "No!" The fourth elder of the Ling Yuan sect was shocked. "Puchi! But just as he shouted a word, his chest was mercilessly pierced through by the red beam of light. His thoughts and sea of consciousness were cut off and his eyes dimmed. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue's eyes were filled with disbelief. Bai Ruihu and the other experts from the two sects also widened their eyes. Rank 2 Martial King. He was insta-killed by him just like that. Chapter 484. The noisy fourth elder of the Spirit Stream sect was killed by Jun Changxiao's 7 profound sunglow break. Bai Ruihu and the others widened their eyes. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue, who were standing on the city gate tower, were stunned. That guy killed a rank 2 martial king too easily. There was nothing they could do. Under the suppression of the sword aura, the fourth elder of the Spirit Stream sect couldn't dodge or resist. He could only stand there and wait for death. When Jun Changxiao first used the sword aura in the Blue Mountain sect, he could only barely restrain a martial king. Now that his cultivation had improved and his understanding of the way of the sword had deepened, when facing a low-level martial king, his chi domain was comparable to Wu Huang's. Plop! The fourth elder of the Spirit Stream sect fell to the ground. Elder Wang. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect glared at Jun Changxiao with a strong killing intent in his eyes. You have a problem with that? Jun Changxiao said, come, let's fight. Arrogant. Arrogant. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect said in a deep voice, kid, you killed people of the Spirit Stream sect. We won't rest until you die. Although he was angry, he was more rational. To be able to kill the fourth elder, this kid was very strong. If he blindly accepted the challenge, it would be dangerous. Therefore, he could only threaten him. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said indifferently, it's not like I haven't killed them before. Do you think I'm afraid? It's not like I haven't killed them before. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect was stunned. Then, he remembered something and said in surprise, Elder Shui and Elder Zhuang were killed by you? Jun Changxiao was surprised. You don't know. In his opinion, his identity should have been exposed since he was chased by Wu Huang of the Spirit Stream sect. That was why he flew out and killed the fourth elder. Anyway, there was a grudge between them. Since he had already killed 2, it didn't matter if he killed one more. In fact, the Spirit Stream sect didn't know who the murderer was. Although the Grand Elder had seen him, he didn't know his true identity. The 2 martial kings of the Duanshui Pavilion were also angry and murderous. An elder and many disciples of their sect went to the Blue Mountain sect with the Spirit Stream sect and never returned. They must have been killed by him. The 3 martial kings glared at him angrily. Jun Cheng laughed and said, you're so angry. How about this? He paused, and said, don't say that I'm bullying you. The 3 of you can come at me together. One person challenging 3 martial kings. How arrogant. Arrogant. The anger in the eyes of the elders of the 2 sects burned even brighter. As the king of martial Dao, he would definitely find it hard to accept being looked down upon by a junior. Elder Zhang, Elder Zhao. The third elder of the Spirit Stream sect said in a low voice, since Sect Master Jun has said so, it would be rude of us to not accompany you. Not bad. Duanshui Pavilion's Elder Zhang said, if Sect Head Jun insists on fighting 1 against 3, we must accompany you to the end. Jun Changxiao was able to instantly kill a rank 2 martial king. None of them had the confidence to fight him one-on-one. However, if they were to fight him together, they would have a very high chance of winning. Schwa! 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 The 3 of them flew out and landed in front of the formation. Then, they unleashed their martial king cultivation. Whoosh! Whoosh! A thick and heavy aura instantly filled the battlefield, causing Xie Guanquan, who was on the city gate tower, to tremble. Zhang Sun Fanghua said coldly, 1 against 3 martial kings. That brat is truly arrogant. Leng Xingyue said, although his strength is not bad, he's too young and impetuous. Shi Jingxian smiled and said, I feel that Sect Master Jun dares to fight 1 against 3. He's a man of iron and unyielding character. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were silent. It seemed that the palace master was truly infatuated with that guy. No matter what he did, she believed it to be right. Facing the 3 martial kings who unleashed their cultivation, Jun Changshao asked inwardly with a calm expression, what's the strength of these 3 people? The system said, 1 rank 5 martial king and 2 rank 3 martial kings. If that's the case, they're equivalent to rank 11 martial kings, Jun Changshao thought to himself. System, adding up the other party's cultivation level, this was too strange. Sect Master Jun, the Spirit Stream Sect's 3rd elder said coldly, can we begin? With so many people watching and 3 against 1, he had to pay attention to his demeanor to prevent others from gossiping behind his back. Let's begin. Jun Changshao said with his hands behind his back, I'll let you guys make the first move. This was truly arrogant. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue, who were already unhappy with him, rolled their eyes. They secretly thought that such an arrogant junior would fall sooner or later. There was no need for sooner or later. Now was the time. If 3 martial kings joined forces, they would definitely be able to beat him to a pulp. The Spirit Stream Sect's 3rd elder's eyes flickered with anger. He exchanged glances with the 2 Duanshui Pavilion's 3rd elder and then used their respective martial skills. Immediately, multicolored spiritual energy gathered. Whoosh, the spiritual energy surged and the wind howled. 3 martial kings working together could be said to be extremely powerful. The White Tiger Corps soldiers standing at the front line had fear in their eyes. Then, they unconsciously retreated more than 10 steps. They were worried that they would be affected by the aftershocks and die an unnatural death. Since ancient times, there had been many little ghosts who had suffered because of a fight between immortals. Go! The 3rd elder of the Spirit Stream Sect shouted. At the same time, he rushed over using his movement technique. His fists were infused with spiritual energy and instantly blasted out dozens of punches in the air. Hidden Tyrant Fist. Supreme Grade Fist Technique. Whoosh whoosh. The densely packed fist shadows formed a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas as they pressed forward. As soon as the Spirit Stream Sect's 3rd elder made his move, the 2 Duanshui Pavilion's 3rd elder also quickly stepped forward. Then, they gathered spiritual energy in 2 directions and blasted it. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 vigorous energies turned into streams of light like saber energy. This was Duanshui Pavilion's unique martial skill, Water Drawing Saber. Although its level was not as high as the Hidden Tyrant Fist, it was still a rather rare spiritual energy martial skill. Boom! 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 The densely packed fist imprints first blasted towards Jun Changshao. Under the energy explosion, a cloud of mist immediately rose up. Following that, the 2 saber-drawing water-breaking swords swept up a cloud of dust that covered the sky. Hiss! Many soldiers sucked in a breath of cold air. If they were to resist this kind of power, they would definitely be blasted into meat paste. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue both shook their heads. 3 different martial techniques came from 3 different directions, but that guy actually stood in the same place without moving. Did he think that he could use the spiritual energy wall to resist it? A 5th grade martial king and 2 3rd grade martial kings. The power they erupted with was at least 6 to 7 million jin. Even a peak martial king might not be able to resist it. Gradually, the dust dissipated. Jun Changshao's figure gradually appeared. Still standing there. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Even if the spiritual energy wall could resist the bombardment of 3 martial kings, it should at least take a few steps back, right? What did he mean by standing there? Whoosh! A gust of wind blew away the thin mist, and they could clearly see that Jun Changshao was not only standing in the same place, but he was also wearing a scarlet armor. He had an imposing appearance, and was extraordinarily mighty. This, Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were stunned. They looked at the armor on Jun Changshao's body and couldn't be sure for a moment. Was it an equipment or a treasure? Chapter 485. The combined attack of 3 martial kings was very powerful. However, Jun Changxiao's spirit armor had an extremely high defense, so it was able to withstand all of the attacks. Because of his mood, he even turned into a scarlet-red color. It was simply too bright. The 3 martial kings from the 2 sects frowned. They knew that this child was strong and used his trump card right from the start. However, not only did it not injure him, it did not even push him back. This was very damaging to their pride. Swoosh! Jun Changshao raised his hand and smiled. It's my turn to make a move. Whoosh! The special energy in the world was extracted and condensed into a scarlet ball of light in his palm. The armor was scarlet red. The attribute was also scarlet red. At that moment, Sect leader Jun was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. The 3 martial kings' expressions changed greatly. Just now, Elder Wang's chest was directly penetrated by this energy. He's using the 7 profound sunglow break again. He Wudi, who was on the city wall, thought. This move consumes a lot of spiritual energy. Isn't he afraid of exhausting himself? No. Dual core drive, sufficient energy. Jun Changxiao's palm was aimed at Duanshui Pavilion's Elder Sunday. At that moment, beads of sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. A rank 2 martial king was instantly killed by this move. Although he was a rank 3 martial king, he would definitely not be able to withstand it. Pa! Elder Zhang strode over and placed his hands on Elder Sun's back. He shouted, "You and I will form a formation together." Okay. Elder Sun quickly formed a seal. Whoosh whoosh. The surging spiritual energy and Elder Zhang's spiritual energy converged together and instantly formed a solid defensive barrier in front of them. Double seal formation. Zhang Sun Fanghua said. Leng Xingyue said, "This seems to be a mid-rank defensive martial skill." Yes. Zhang Sun Fanghua said, "That guy might not be able to move it." Break. At that moment, Jun Changshao disdainfully said. Whoosh! A scarlet beam of light suddenly shot out from his palm and hit the defensive barrier at an extremely fast speed. Bang! In an instant, the defensive formation created by the 2 rank 3 martial kings was instantly shattered like paper. Puchi! Puchi! The remaining power of the crimson light beam did not diminish, and it directly passed through Elder Sun's left shoulder. Elder Zhang, who was behind him, could not avoid it, and his left shoulder was also pierced through. Breaking the barrier would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The might of this 7 profound sunglow break was truly astonishing. When Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue saw this, their eyes widened again. The 2 of them had come to assist Iron Bone in defending Green Sun City, but in the end, not only had they become a shocking audience, but they had also been slapped in the face time and time again. They were truly pitiful. Hoo. Right at this moment, a heavy pressure suddenly appeared in the sky. Jun Changshao raised his head and looked. Clusters of spiritual energy were gathering, as if dark clouds were pressing down on the border. The 3rd elder of the Spirit Stream sect, who was standing in the distance, raised his hands to the sky. Spiritual energy surged out of his body and surged into the air. After a short period of accumulation, he roared, "Mahayana heaven-destroying palm." Whoosh! A giant hand emerged from the converging spiritual energy and pressed down from above with rolling airwaves. This aura made everyone suck in a cold breath. It was no exaggeration to say that when the palm pressed down, the sky of Green Sun City became dim. Jun Changshao said indifferently, light of a firefly. Ta! He took a step forward and clenched his fists. When the palm was about to press down, he suddenly blasted toward the sky. Bang! 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 After a series of violent explosions, the palm pressing down was directly broken by the overbearing force. Puff! The third elder of the spirit stream sect spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes were filled with horror. The Mahayana heaven-destroying palm was his strongest trump card. He had begun to accumulate power when the opponent attacked Duanshui Pavilion's martial king. In the end, it was broken just like that. Shua! Jun Changshao appeared in front of him with cloud-treading steps and said coldly, "Don't struggle." Whoosh! Whoosh! Once again, the mountain-collapsing earth-shattering fist spread out and immediately launched a storm-like bombardment. The whole process took place in a flash. Only Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue could keep up with Jun Changxiao's movements and the speed of his fists. Bang! 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 Thump! 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 Facing the violent bombardment, the third elder of the spirit stream sect was beaten back repeatedly. His expression was constantly changing, and in the end, it was fixed on extreme pain. When sect leader Jun retracted his fist, he had already retreated dozens of steps. When he stabilized his body, he fell to the ground while vomiting blood. The corners of Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue's mouths twitched. Out of the 3 martial kings, 2 were injured and 1 was brutally beaten. This guy's strength was too strong. If the 2 knew that sect leader Jun had not used his full strength, they would be even more shocked. It could be said that, with his current strength, not to mention a 5th-grade martial king, he could even defeat a 7th or 8th-grade martial king. Heavens! City Lord Xia was shocked. Sect leader Jun is simply too terrifying. The Iron Bone disciples raised their heads and puffed out their chests. Obviously, they were proud of the strength displayed by their sect leader. Boring. Jun Changshao looked at the stunned Bai Ruehu in the distance and said, "Let's quickly give the order to attack the city." With a wave of his long sleeve, he flew to the city tower. The 3 martial kings from the spiritual stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion endured their injuries and retreated in a sorry state. Jun Changshao did not intend to take their lives. Otherwise, they would have already become corpses. Sect leader Jun, Bai Ruehu said in a deep voice, "Is the Iron Bone really going to participate in the war and defend Qingyang City to the death?" Although he was shocked by Jun Changxiao's strength, according to the rules, martial kings were not allowed to participate in worldly wars. Why? Because the strength of a martial king was too terrifying. They could destroy tens of thousands of soldiers with a wave of their hand. Jun Changxiao, who had just landed in front of the city tower, said, "The Iron Bone is here. Qingyang City is here." His voice echoed in the air. The millions of people hiding in the city heard his words and their trembling hearts were immediately comforted. Sect leader Jun. Xie Guankuan, who was standing at the side, was so moved that he almost cried. He cupped his hands and said, "Qingyang City will remember this kindness in our hearts." Bai Ruehu sneered. How can a mere sect compete with the mighty army of my Xinjiang County? Shua! The battle flag was waved. Thousands of soldiers pushed the heavy siege vehicles out. Clearly, the siege was about to begin. Hall Master Shui. Jun Changshao said, "I'll leave this battle to you." Yes. Shui Rengui stepped forward and waved the war flag in his hand. The city gates immediately opened and the members of the Wolf Rider Hall rode out on their hurricane wolves. Wolf Riders? Bai Ruehu's eyes were filled with surprise. That's it? A general laughed disdainfully. Xinjiang County had 300,000 soldiers, but Iron Bone had sent out 1,000 wolf cavalry soldiers to meet the enemy head-on. The disparity was simply too great. The determination to break through enemy lines, only death awaits. Zhou Yi brandished his overlord spear and roared, "Kill, kill, kill!" The hurricane wolves carried the members of the Wolf Rider Hall on their backs and formed a long snake formation as they charged forward. Looking down from above, the Xinjiang County's army was like a boundless ocean, and the wolf cavalry was like a lone boat. However, even though there were only a few of them, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall had a cold gaze as they emitted an unyielding aura. A mantis trying to stop a chariot, overestimating your capabilities. Bai Ruihu snorted and waved the war flag in his hand. Ta ta ta! 50,000 iron bone cavalry soldiers stood at the front line and gradually formed a formation. Facing 1,000 wolf cavalry soldiers with this number, General Bai was also very cautious. "Kill!" the cavalry general roared. "Ta! Ta! Ta!" The 50,000 iron bone cavalry soldiers immediately moved. Their horses madly galloped, causing the earth to tremble violently and rolling up a cloud of dust that covered the sky. Shua! Xiao Ziji, who was standing on the sentry tower, raised his Type 88 sniper rifle. One of his eyes was placed on the 8x scope as he decisively pulled the trigger. Peng! 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 The 20 bullets were all used up as they flew past the members of the Wolf Rider Hall and accurately hit each and every one of them. Kill! At the same time, Zhou Yi led his members and charged forward. A battle of cavalry with fewer numbers had officially begun. Chapter 486. Over the past 3 months, the Wolf Rider Hall still had 1,000 members, but their strength had increased significantly. They were all peak martial masters. Sect leader Jun had also spent a lot of money. He had taken out all the natural spirit stones from the mines to help them improve their cultivation. With the help of spirit stones, they could increase their cultivation by 2 levels in Wuzong in a few days. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall were only martial masters. With all kinds of resources, it was easy for them to break through. The cavalry that Tao Yuan had carefully trained had been suppressed before. Now that the overall strength of the Wolf Rider Hall had increased, it was naturally easier for them to fight the 50,000 cavalry of the White Tiger Legion. This was not. Zhou Yi led the way. He was like an invincible sword. Wherever he went, he would kill. He did not give the enemy any chance to survive. Once again, the cavalry that had wanted to surround the Wolf Riders lost 3,000 to 4,000 men. During this time, they had tried to fight back. However, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall were all covered in armor. They were armed to the teeth. They were like a moving iron wall. Kill! Zhou Yi shouted again. Awu! Awu! The hurricane wolves showed their full speed. On the battlefield of Green Sun City, they lined up in the shape of a person, and then in the shape of a line. They were very smug. Puchi, a cavalry soldier, was pierced through the chest by the overlord's spear. He was then thrown off his horse. As soon as he landed on the ground, the hurricane wolves behind him stepped on him. Kill! Kill! The members of the Wolf Rider Hall shouted angrily. They waved the overlord's spear in their hands and killed the soldiers one by one. At this moment, life was worthless on the battlefield. After a few rounds, the formation of the tens of thousands of cavalry soldiers was completely disrupted by the Wolf Riders. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. These Iron Bone Sect disciples riding hurricane wolves and wearing armor were simply demons that came out from hell. What was more tragic was that not only did they have to face the Wolf Rider Hall, but they also had to face Xiao Ziji, who was standing on the sentry tower. Because every time this guy fired a shot, he would take away a life. Of course. Li Tian, who was standing on another sentry tower, was also shooting frequently. Although his skills were still bad, at least he would not hurt his own people. Bai Ruihu's face was very ugly. The wolf riders were too strong. Their own cavalry soldiers were being suppressed to the point that they could not fight back. Schwa! The battle flag was waved. The remaining 50,000 infantrymen charged forward. The best way to deal with this kind of wolf cavalry was to rely on numbers to suppress them, and then exhaust them until they were completely exhausted. Disciples, heed my command. Jun Changshao, who was standing on top of the city gate tower, shouted, "Go out and meet the enemy." Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei used cloud-treading steps and jumped down from the city gate tower, impatiently rushing towards the battlefield. The two of them had long wanted to make a move. Unfortunately, the sect leader did not give any orders. They could only watch as Zhong Yi led his men to slaughter everyone below. Now that he was allowed to make a move, he was like a rabid dog that had escaped from its leash. Schwa! Schwa! Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, Sima Zhongda, Cui Bujian, and the others also rushed in. All of a sudden, nearly 2,000 Iron Bone disciples charged into the battlefield. When they burst forth with their cultivations, Zhang Sun Fanghua exclaimed in disbelief, "They are all peak martial masters." Leng Xingyue widened her eyes and said, "Is this a seventh-rate sect?" "Sorry." Jun Changshao, who was standing next to her, said seriously, "My Iron Bone is now a sixth-rate sect, not a seventh-rate sect." Leng Xingyue's mouth twitched. Even a sixth-rate sect could not have more than 2,000 peak martial masters. Moreover, the few disciples who charged into the enemy group and slaughtered crazily were all 6th grade or 7th grade Wuzong. If she knew how many natural spiritual stones Iron Bone had absorbed in the past 90 days, she would definitely understand why it had such a powerful realm. Puchi! Puchi! Su Xiaoma and Li Fei relied on their speed and rushed into the enemy first. The cold-edged sword in their hands flashed, and the soldiers fell to the ground one by one. They were really mad dogs. They would bite whoever they saw, showing no mercy. Yang Yuhua, who was the second meat shield, rushed in with her iron shield. She was like a bulldozer, directly dragging dozens of soldiers with her. Long Xiang rushed in with the Overlord's spear in his hand. A cold light flashed first, and then the spear shot out like a dragon, mercilessly killing the surrounding soldiers. Even the seemingly insignificant disciples of Iron Bone, such as Sima Zhongda and Cui Bujian, showed their terrifying killing power when they charged into the enemy group. The 50,000 infantrymen who were about to encircle the wolf cavalry were immediately stopped by the 2,000 Iron Bone disciples. Bang! Bang! The light of my slash flashed, and the landslide fist whistled. All kinds of gorgeous energy exploded at the same time, and the scene was spectacular. In front of the fierce Iron Bone disciples, the White Tiger soldiers were like weeds being harvested row by row. Bai Ruihu's expression changed again and again, becoming more and more ugly. In the end, he waved the war flag again, and another 50,000 infantrymen rushed over. "You're strong. I'll rely on the human wave tactic to completely crush them." Sect leader Shui Rengui frowned and said, "This is not good." After all, Iron Bone was weak alone, and it was difficult for them to fight against hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Jun Changshao said, "Tell them to retreat." Swoosh! The war flag was waved. Zhong Yi received the order and immediately shouted, "Retreat!" Swoosh! Swoosh! The members of the Wolf Cavalry Hall did not linger and rode the Hurricane Wolves back to the city. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others also returned to Qingyang City after killing many soldiers. Very soon, only the White Tiger soldiers were left on the battlefield. From the corpses on the ground, at least 20,000 had died in a short period of time. On the side of Iron Bone, due to their powerful strength and excellent equipment, none of their disciples died. Of course, someone was injured. After all, after rushing into the crowd, they would be bombarded by dozens of people if they were not careful. After a long time, they would definitely not be able to hold on. Damn it. Yang Yuhua, who had returned to the city, grimaced and said, "It really hurts." The clothes on his back were all torn, revealing the soft silk armor that was left behind by various weapons and martial arts attacks. Phew. Sima Zhongda gasped for breath and said, "Fortunately, Sect Master told us to retreat in time. Otherwise, we would have been surrounded. Even if we were not killed, we would have been exhausted to death." Zhang Sun Fanghua said indifferently, "Sect Master Jun, although your disciples are strong, there is no hope for them to defend Qingyang City." This was not looking down on Iron Bone, but the truth. Thousands of disciples, even if they were peak martial masters, had a limit. How could they fight against an army of 300,000? Xie Guanquan was also a little worried. The disciples of Iron Bone were already very tired after charging for a round. If Sect Master Jun did not have a backup plan, how could they fight the enemy next? Don't worry, don't worry. Jun Changshao said confidently, "The show has just begun." Xiao Ziji jumped out of the sentry tower, then used the cloud-treading steps to walk to the back. After a few ups and downs, he stopped on a hillside outside the city and tore off the weeds, revealing the field artillery that had been prepared long ago. Ka ka ka. He controlled the steering wheel, and the muzzle of the cannon turned toward the East City Gate. He said telepathically, "Sect Master, the calibration is complete." Jun Changshao did not say anything, but his eyes were fixed outside the city. Ta ta ta. The 100,000 soldiers of the White Tiger Army marched forward, and the siege chariots in front opened the way. Facing such a formation, it was really difficult to fight head-on without enough troops. Swoosh! A general raised the war flag and shouted, "Attack! Fire!" At this moment, Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. Xiao Ziji, who was standing in front of the field artillery, pressed the button directly. The muzzle of the cannon suddenly spewed out flames, and thick smoke rose. Boom! The sound of the explosion was transmitted. The walls of Green Sun City trembled, and the buildings in the city creaked from the tremors. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyu's expressions changed. At the same time, an object dragging a stream of light appeared in their field of vision, then drew a beautiful arc and landed in the midst of the Xinjiang County army that was preparing to attack the city. Boom! The sound of the explosion came from the battlefield, and an extremely strong shock wave was formed. Whoosh whoosh, strong winds blew, and thick fog appeared. The elders and disciples of Miaohua Palace all widened their eyes, and some people's ears even buzzed. Bai Ruihu was even more miserable. Because he was very close to the explosion, he was directly blown off his horse by the shock wave and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His eyes were filled with fear. What is this? It was a cannon. Bang! A cannon. Chapter 487. After the sound of the cannons, the buildings and the ground shook violently as if an earthquake had occurred. The citizens in the city were terrified. Their blood boiled, and their ears buzzed from the sound of the cannons. Jun Changshao had already taken good care of them by setting up the cannons on the mountain outside the city. Otherwise, if the cannons were to be fired in the city, many people would vomit blood and faint from the shock. The citizens were weak, so it was normal for them to not be able to withstand the sound of the cannons. However, the ingenious Flower Palace disciples on the city walls all had decent cultivations. Yet, they were still shocked by the sound of the cannons. Zhang Sun Fanghua and the other elders opened their mouths. Their cultivations were high and could withstand the impact of the sound, but they were stunned by the scene outside the city. There, 100,000 Xinjiang County soldiers were preparing to attack the city. As a streak of light arced down, not only did it cause a huge explosion, but it also caused a mushroom-shaped cloud to rise. What was going on? Could it be that an expert had used an extremely high-level martial technique? Whoosh! 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 Waves of violent energy rippled out in all directions. The Italian cannons were truly powerful. However, Xiao Ziji also suffered. Even though he had plugged his ears with something, he was still shaken to the point of spinning on the spot. In the end, he sat on the ground dizzily. If it were Su Xiaoma, he would have fallen to the ground and started convulsing again. The aftershock of the explosion gradually dissipated. A crater several hundred feet deep appeared outside Qingyang City. Hiss! Xie Guanquan sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with fear. What shocked and frightened him was not just the crater, but also the tens of thousands of soldiers lying outside the crater. There were many more outside. Some were killed by the aftershock, and some survived by luck. However, all of them were heavily injured and moaned in pain as they lay on the ground. The most terrifying thing was inside the crater. There were shattered pieces of armor and scattered pieces of flesh. Nearly 10,000 soldiers were in the center of the explosion, and not even their corpses were left. Plop! Bai Ruihu, who had just stood up, was so shocked that he sat on the ground again. His eyes were filled with horror. 100,000 soldiers were almost completely wiped out by the explosion. The shock and impact of this was simply too great. The White Tiger Legion soldiers who hadn't participated in the battle were so scared that their scalps were about to explode. Just what was that streak of light that flew over just now? It could produce such a terrifying destructive power. At that moment, everyone in the White Tiger Legion was terrified. The Wolf Riders and Iron Bone disciples had also given them quite a shock, but it was far from being comparable to the cannon. After all, its destructive power was too great. General Bai. On the city gate tower, Jun Changshao asked, "Are you satisfied?" Bai Ruihu was not only very satisfied with the cannon blast, but he was so satisfied that his scalp went numb. Suppressing his fear, he asked in a trembling voice, Is it a martial king or above?" Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were also considering this question, but in the end, they rejected it because they did not detect any spiritual waves when the stream of light flew over. This meant that there were no experts nearby. Judging from the light just now, it seemed more like a hidden weapon. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, "Your Xinjiang County has spirit core-powered throwers, magic explosive crossbows, and siege chariots. My Iron Bone naturally also has ingenious battlefield weapons." Hearing this, Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were sure that the stream of light just now was definitely a hidden weapon. Could it be made of high-level crystal cores to be able to produce such a powerful force? Their guess was right. The cannonballs were indeed condensed from crystal cores. However, the pure energy of crystal cores could not produce such a strong destructive power. It all came from the field cannon. This kind of magically modified Italian cannon could convert energy to produce even higher damage. Bai Ruihu's expression was abnormally ugly. It turned out that Iron Bone had such a powerful trump card. No wonder they could remain so calm in front of his 300,000 soldiers. What should he do? What should he do? Bai Ruihu was bombarded by the cannon and lost his will to fight. To be precise, he became a coward. In an instant, the 100,000 soldiers were killed and injured. Even a 5-star general like Shui Rengui would be afraid. Of course. Jun Changshao said, "Just now was just a greeting gift. The real battle has just begun." Swish! He jumped to the roof of the city tower and opened his hands. Buzz! Buzz! On the left and right outside Qingyang City, a stream of light suddenly appeared. Array? Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue looked at each other. Suddenly, they remembered that yesterday, this guy strolled casually outside the city with his hands behind his back and occasionally drew on the ground with a branch. At that time, the two of them thought that this guy was bored out of his mind. Now it seemed that he was not doing boring things, but setting up an array. How is it possible? Zhang Sun Fanghua said in disbelief. Array masters were all serious and careful when setting up arrays. That guy could form an array just by drawing randomly. Yes. It was very easy. Because it was the Chiman 32 array. General Bai. Jun Changshao raised his hand and smiled. Today, I will let you see what an elite army is, what a mighty army is. Clap. His palms were tightly clasped together. Swish. Swish. The isolation array on both sides of the city immediately disappeared. What appeared in everyone's vision were soldiers in armor, with mighty auras and cold gazes. There were a total of 100,000 of them. Sect leader Jun was afraid that if he directly scattered beans into soldiers, it would cause a huge shock and bring unnecessary trouble to himself, so he placed the spirit beans in the isolation array in advance. In this way, no one would think that the soldiers were made of beans. They would only think that he had set up an ambush outside the city in advance. Xie Guangquan was dumbfounded, and then his eyes lit up with excitement. It turned out that sect leader Jun had more than one backup plan. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue frowned and thought to themselves, although these soldiers don't have any martial arts aura, their strength must be extraordinary. Why did they think so? Because they could tell from their aura and eyes. Bai Ruihu, who had been through hundreds of battles, naturally realized it. The other party had extremely lethal war weapons and so many elite soldiers. This was very troublesome. Retreat? As soon as this thought arose, Jun Changshao, who was standing on the city tower, controlled the 100,000 spirit bean soldiers and walked over in an orderly manner. There were 50,000 soldiers on each side, and they gradually surrounded by Ruihu's less than 200,000 soldiers. Sect leader Jun is wise and virtuous. He will benefit the common people and unite the world for thousands of years. The spirit bean soldiers shouted in unison. Their voices rippled in the sky for a long time. System, for the soldiers to shout such a slogan, it must have been transmitted by Jun Changshao's thoughts. Did he want to be more arrogant? What do you know? Jun Changshao said, this is aura. The system said, this slogan is Dongfang Boobies. Host, cut off the unnecessary things below and you will meet the criteria of unite the world for thousands of years. Chapter 488. There were a total of 100,000 spirit bean soldiers on the left and right, shouting slogans as they strode forward. Their deep voices resounded in the air and were quite imposing. However, unifying the pugilistic world for thousands of years was a little too arrogant. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue rolled their eyes. A sect master of a sixth-rate sect wanted to unify the pugilistic world. His brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Shi Jingxian, who had been silent all this while, smiled and said, Sect Master Jun wants to unify the pugilistic world. What a big goal. Due to her eye disease, her presence was not very strong. However, Shi Jingxian could tell from the voice that the Xinjiang County Army must have suffered a setback. Humans. Jun Changshao, who was standing on the city gate tower, raised his head 45 degrees and said proudly, we have to set a big goal. Only then will we have more motivation to work hard. Therefore, this guy spent all his skill points on acting cool. If he could use them to persuade people, how could he still be single? Tisk, Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were disdainful. Humans had to have goals, but they should also recognize themselves and not daydream all day long. On the battlefield, 100,000 spirit bean soldiers had already approached. Their aura was like a rainbow and they shouted slogans that shook heaven and earth. Instantly, the soldiers of the White Tiger Legion were so shocked that their hearts trembled. To be honest, the cannon blast just now had left them with a psychological shadow. Bai Ruihu also knew that their morale was low. If they fought hard, they would definitely suffer heavy losses. Shush! He rode his horse with difficulty and shouted, retreat. They were really terrified. Stomp! 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 The soldiers of the White Tiger Legion were not in the mood to fight. After hearing the order, they hurriedly turned around and retreated. They're retreating! They're retreating! Xie Guangquan shouted excitedly. The attack of 300,000 soldiers made him prepared to die if the city was still there. Now that the other party had retreated, it was definitely the most satisfactory result. You come and go as you wish. Do you think my Qingyang city is a market? Jun Changshao sneered and immediately controlled the spirit bean soldiers to use the cloud-treading steps, blocking the retreat at full speed. Looking down from the sky, one could see that the 100,000 soldiers were like a huge net, surrounding the White Tiger Legion. If they wanted to retreat, they could only kill their way out. Hall Master Shui. Jun Changshao said, have the Wolf Rider Hall assist in the defense. Yes. Shua. Shui Rengui waved his battle flag, and Zhongyi once again led 1,000 wolf riders and rushed out at top speed. Jun Changshao said, don't just stand there. Yes. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the other disciples flew down from the city wall. In an instant, 100,000 spirit bean soldiers surrounded the White Tiger Legion on the battlefield outside the city. 1,000 wolf riders and iron bone disciples stood in the outer circle. Jun Changxiao's meaning was simple. Since they were guests, and they had traveled thousands of miles to Qingyang City, as the host, he had to treat them well and make them feel comfortable. Commander, we've been surrounded. A general in the enemy army said with an unsightly expression. Bai Ruihu said in a deep voice, break out. Yes. The generals immediately mobilized their forces, locked onto a position where they could retreat, and launched an attack. Once the soldiers were scattered, their strength would definitely be limited. However, what made the White Tiger Legion despair was that the 10,000 soldiers in charge of breaking out of the encirclement and the 1,000 spirit bean soldiers at the breakout point were instantly killed. Boom! Boom! The energy of Wachop erupted crazily, and broken limbs flew all over the sky. In just one round, the 10,000 soldiers who broke out of the encirclement were instantly killed. At the same time, the surrounding spirit bean soldiers also began to use Wachop on a large scale. With so many people condensing so many crescent-shaped streams of light, the scene was truly shocking. Fuck! Su Xiaoma, who was standing outside, opened his mouth in shock. It turns out that so many people using Wachop will form such a magnificent scene. Li Fei exclaimed. Shua! Shua! Boom! 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 Jun Changshao controlled the spirit bean soldiers and continuously used Wachop. This was absolutely shameless. So what if it was shameless? As long as they could win on the battlefield, no one would fight openly. Plop! Plop! The soldiers of the White Tiger Corps who were trapped were pitiful targets that could only passively be beaten. Bai Ruihu, who was protected by a few generals, watched his own people fall one by one. His eyes were filled with anger, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he only wanted to leave as soon as possible and return to Xinjiang County. Whoosh! The streams of light flew over and directly pierced through the generals in front of him. Blood splattered on Bai Ruihu's helmet. Whoosh! 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 Several streams of light flew over one after another. The generals in front of him were all shot and killed. Ah ah! Bai Ruihu was furious. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure rushed over from the layers of soldiers and then stopped in front of him. He grinned and said, to catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Fu Su Xiaoma moved his body, went to the back, and raised his leg to kick Bai Ruihu's butt. Bai Ruihu's strength was not bad. He had reached the level of 6th grade Wuzong, but he still could not withstand the force of this kick and was directly kicked into the sky. Marshal! All the soldiers exclaimed in unison. Watch me! Li Fei tiptoed and used the cloud-treading steps. He leaped more than 20 feet and then landed on the same level as Bai Ruihu. With a golden hook, he kicked Bai Ruihu out like a ball. Junior brother Yang, catch him. Okay. Ta ta ta. Yang Yuhua, who was standing on the periphery, kept her iron shield and ran toward Bai Ruihu. Finally, when he was about to hit the ground, she caught him with great precision. Our general has been captured. Xie Guanquan was so excited that he almost jumped up. The soldiers of the White Tiger Corps, who had already lost their will to fight, became even more chaotic when they saw their marshal being captured by the Iron Bone disciples. They were definitely going to be utterly defeated. It would be a piece of cake for Jun Changshao to wipe them all out. However, he passed an order to the Spirit Bean soldiers. They shouted loudly, "Lay down your weapons and we will spare your lives. Lay down your weapons and we will spare your lives." The voice was like a bell, shocking everyone's mind. The spirit of the White Tiger Corps soldiers immediately collapsed. They threw the weapons in their hands to the ground and raised their hands high. The Spirit Bean soldiers also stopped their attacks. Of the 200,000 soldiers that were surrounded, 60,000 to 70,000 died in a short time. This killing speed was too fast. No wonder the well-trained and battle-hardened White Tiger Corps soldiers chose to surrender. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, Complete Victory. You have received 2,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 35445,000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission and triggering the hidden rewards. You have received Saint Grade Aptitude Modifying Liquid X1 and Medial Grade Sect Leader Sphere X1. They have been transferred to the interspatial ring. Defeating 300,000 soldiers and completing the hidden mission. How wonderful! The Saint Grade Aptitude Modifying Liquid and Medial Grade Sect Leader Sphere were also very satisfying. Plop! In the Qingyang City drill ground, Yang Yuhua threw the tied-up Bai Ruihu on the stone platform. This was one of the top 10 generals of southwest Yangzhou. He led an army of 300,000 to attack, but in the end, not only was he defeated, but he was also captured. He was even more miserable than Tao Yuan. General Bai. Jun Changshao walked over and said proudly, "You lost." Bai Ruihu, who was kneeling on the ground, had his head lowered. His eyes were filled with anger and pain. He had led an army for 50 years. Although he had lost many battles, this was the most tragic one. Even if he was ransomed, his career was completely over. Sect Master Jun, Xie Guanquan said, "How should we deal with this person?" Puchi Jun Changshao took out the cold light sword and directly cut off Bai Ruihu's head. He said indifferently, "Send him to Xinyang County. Let that ambitious county governor understand the consequences of offending Qingyang County." Chapter 489. Jun Changshao could have subdued Bai Ruihu, but he still chose to kill him. The reason for doing so was to let the true Yang County governor understand that Azure Sun County was not something that could be easily annexed. Not convinced? Continue to send troops. My Iron Bones sect will accompany you to the end. Sect Master Jun, who had the field cannons and the Qiankuan bag, was now full of confidence. He was not afraid of worldly wars at all. If it wasn't for the sect's development, he might have led the army to attack Truyang County. This guy is really ruthless, Zhang Sun Fanghua said. Leng Xingyue said indifferently, killing the White Tiger Legion's commander is equivalent to completely becoming enemies with Truyang County. Zhang Sun Fanghua said, Truyang County still has 3 legions. If they really want to be ruthless, they can kill all of them. Let's see how he can defend Azure Sun City. Shi Jingxian shook her head and said, County Governor Zhua is an ambitious person. He's not a boorish man. The White Tiger Legion's defeat in Azure Sun City must have sounded the alarm for him. Without careful consideration, he won't easily send more troops. This woman saw through things very clearly. She also supported Jun Changshao killing the enemy's commander because it would be a deterrent and let Truyang County know that although Azure Sun County was small, it was not a pushover. The more Shi Jingxian saw with her mind, the more she had a good impression of Jun Changshao. From the looks of it, she thought to herself, helping him is the right bet. Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue were not as complicated as Shi Jingxian thought. The two of them agreed that the Iron Bone sect master was too arrogant. He was still a hothead and would fall sooner or later. Yes. They thought that they would fall when the army of 300,000 attacked. In the end, they were still slapped in the face by reality. The 300,000 soldiers of the White Tiger Legion had suffered heavy casualties. The remaining 100,000 soldiers surrendered and were imprisoned by Xie Guangkuan. Truyang County's attack ended in complete defeat. It was not hard to imagine that when this news spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in southwest Yangzhou. Sect Master Jun, Shi Jingxian, smiled and said, Green Sun City's crisis has been temporarily resolved. Since the sect is busy, this queen will bring the disciples back first. Many thanks for Palace Master Shi's help. Jun will remember this kindness in his heart. Jun Changshao cupped his hands. He still had to deal with the aftermath, so he only sent Shi Jingxian out of the city. Leng Xingyu, who was following them, stopped. She turned around and looked at the city gate tower. She met Elder Wei's gaze, and there was still a faint hatred in her eyes. AI. Elder Wei sighed. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao said, Elder Leng is still charming. She must have been a great beauty when she was young. Why didn't the two of you reconcile? It would definitely be a good thing if their hall master could develop a better relationship with an elder of Miaohua Palace. Elder Wei shook his head and said, I'm just an old man with one foot in the grave. How could I possibly burden her? You're still so pessimistic. Jun Changshao was speechless. Elder Wei changed the topic and said with a smile, the palace master of Miaohua Palace seems to have a good impression of the sect master. If she takes the initiative, there will definitely be something between the two of you. Jun Changshao said, didn't you say that I can't be infatuated with romantic relationships if I want to develop the sect? Elder Wei said, if it were any other girl, of course you can't be infatuated with her. However, that girl is the sect master of a fourth-rate sect. If you marry her, she will definitely be a good wife for you. That makes sense. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said. Although this woman is blind, she must have extraordinary means to be able to sit in such a high position. If I marry her and let her manage the sect, won't I be able to roam the world with my sword? The system was speechless. Marrying a beautiful girl, yet he wants to be a hands-off shopkeeper. If this guy can find a girlfriend, the heavens must be blind. Elder Wei said, I'm just saying. If the sect master wants to marry the sect master of a fourth-rate sect, it will probably be more difficult than breaking through to martial emperor. Jun Changshao agreed. I'm very handsome and charismatic. However, why would she abandon such a huge sect and marry into Iron Bone? The system couldn't take it anymore. Forcing an explanation and praising myself, this guy's skin is probably thicker than the walls of Qingyang City. On the battlefield outside the city, the corpses had been cleaned up. Although faint traces of blood could still be seen, at least it wasn't as scary as before. Thank you, City Lord. Jun Changshao said, I'll pick a batch of the captured soldiers to bring back to Iron Bone. I'll leave the rest to you. Ah. Xie Guangkuan was dumbfounded. How am I supposed to deal with so many captives? How to deal with them was his problem. After checking the captives, Sect Master Jun brought the disciples of Iron Bone back to the sect. The captives he brought back were all soldiers of the Tiger Army. Iron Bone was still short of more than 2,000 disciples. Since they couldn't recruit any outstanding youths and couldn't poach from other counties, they could only start with these soldiers. They chose the soldiers of the Tiger Army because they were personally trained by Tao Yuan. As long as that guy acknowledged the sect, they would naturally acknowledge him as well. Sect Master Jun's little abacus was very good. However, after returning to the sect, Tao Yuan still locked himself in his room. It could be seen that after being captured, losing his memory and joining Iron Bone was a knot in his heart that couldn't be untied. Creak. The door opened. Jun Changshao walked in and sat on a chair. He crossed his legs and said, Zhenyang County sent 300,000 soldiers to attack Qingyang City. Tao Yuan, who was facing the wall, was expressionless. The result. Jun Changshao said, the commander of the army, Bai Ruihu, was killed by me. His head has been sent to Zhenyang County. The White Tiger Army no longer exists. Tao Yuan, whose back was facing him, trembled slightly. After a while, he sighed deeply. However, there wasn't much shock in his eyes. For the past 3 months, he had been living in Iron Bone. Not only did he know that the wolf cavalry was brave and skilled in battle, he also witnessed the sect master's use of beans to create soldiers. If such a powerful force was used on the battlefield, it would definitely be successful. Not to mention, Hall Master Shui was extremely proficient in the art of war. Although Bai Ruihu's White Tiger Army had 300,000 soldiers, it wouldn't be easy for them to attack the city. Jun Changshao said, I'm not showing off to you. I just want to tell you that if my Iron Bone can defeat an army like Zhenyang County, what kind of opponent can't we defeat? Tao Yuan was silent. Jun Changshao said again, the door has always been open. You can leave now. I won't force you. Tao Yuan's gaze became complicated. Yes. Iron Bone's door had always been open. He could leave without hesitation. However, he chose to lock himself in his room. This meant that he was struggling in his heart. These days, Tao Yuan admired Shui Rengui and wanted to lead the wolf cavalry. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay. However, his dignity as a soldier restricted him. He couldn't make a decision. Jun Changshao stood up and looked out of the window. He said heroically, stay and follow me to conquer the world. We'll sweep through the world and achieve great feats. Tao Yuan was startled. His gaze gradually became filled with battle intent. I've brought the soldiers you've trained. Jun Changshao said, they can continue to fight with you. In the future, there will definitely be a place for you in the Falling Star continent. No. He said resolutely, it should be the god of war whose name resounds through the heavens. Sect Master Jun's ability to fool people wasn't just for show. Even Shui Rengui, who was standing outside, was completely ignited when he heard the words god of war. He was already past the age where his blood was boiling. People didn't have dreams. What was the difference between him and a salted fish author who didn't update? Therefore, Tao Yuan, who was already in a dilemma, suddenly stood up. He then turned around and saluted Jun Changshao. His voice was as loud as a bell as he said, Disciple Tao Yuan is willing to follow Sect Master to conquer the world and achieve great merits. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, bewitching people's heart. You have received 1,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 45445,000. Chapter 490. The main city of Zhenyang County, Zhenyang City, had an extremely majestic palace-like building complex. This was where the county chief lived and was privately called the palace by the people. Just from the architecture alone, it was clear that the county chief of Zhenyang County was a very ambitious person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have built a palace like the one the emperor lived in. Then, what did this county chief look like? Following the camera into the grand hall, they saw a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s sitting at the head of the table. Zhuo Chaochuan, the county chief of Jinyang County. His face was full of whiskers and gave off a very wild feeling. His tiger-like eyes shone brightly and he gave off the aura of someone who had been in power for a long time. His image was very fitting. He was an ambitious and ruthless person. However, below him, the generals and strategists all had their heads lowered and their hearts were all trembling. The atmosphere in the hall was very solemn. Just now, Bai Ruihu's head was placed in a brocade box and sent over. Pa! Zhuo Chaochuan slammed his palm on the table and shouted angrily, 300,000 soldiers not only failed to take down Jinyang City, they were also completely wiped out. Bai Ruihu can't absolve himself from the blame even if he dies 10,000 times. This county chief was really angry. After all, the White Tiger Legion was one of the 4 legions that he had painstakingly built. Now that it was gone just like that, his heart would definitely ache. County Chief. A burly general cupped his hands and said, "This general is willing to lead the Xuanwu Legion to attack Jinyang County and bring back the head of the Iron Bone Sect Master. My Azure Dragon Legion requests for battle. My Vermilion Bird Legion requests for battle." Not only was the county chief angry that the White Tiger Legion had been wiped out, but the commanders of the 3 legions were also very angry. The 3 legions added together had at least 1 million soldiers. If they really attacked Jinyang City, Sect Master Jun would definitely be under a lot of pressure. Although Zhuo Chaochuan was so angry that his beard was trembling, he calmed down and said, "Recently, our Jinyang County has been going to war frequently and has made the other big counties very unhappy. We can't waste our forces for a small county." Iron Bone had been stationed in Jinyang City, wiped out the White Tiger Legion, and even sent Bai Ruihu's head over. This was obviously a warning. If it was just Iron Bone, Zhuo Chaochuan would definitely take it. However, there was more than one enemy at the moment. Many large counties were eyeing Jinyang County covetously, so he had no choice but to consider carefully. Furthermore, the White Tiger Corps had been completely wiped out, so Iron Bone definitely had some strength. If they sent troops over, there would definitely be casualties. It was not a wise move to take over a 9th-grade county that was only meant to expand their territory and had no value in resources. Zhuo Chaochuan wasn't a brainless villain who sent trash to give experience to the main character. After suffering a loss, he would definitely be well-behaved for a period of time. At the very least, they had to deal with the large counties that were eyeing them covetously before thinking about attacking Azure Sun County. This was also what sect leader Jun wanted. Because what he lacked now was time. Even if he was given a bit of time to breathe and let the sect develop, he would have the confidence to confront the entire world. Did you guys hear? The True Sun County sent a total of 300,000 soldiers to attack Azure Sun County. However, they were all defeated outside Azure Sun City. I've long heard of such a huge matter. Moreover, from what I know, the commander of the army, Bai Ruihu, was beheaded and his head was sent to Jinyang County. My God, the White Tiger Corps is one of the best elite corps in southwest Yangzhou. General Bai is also one of the top 10 generals, but he actually died outside Azure Sun City. As expected, the martial cultivators in southwest Yangzhou received the latest news and discussed in shock. Especially when they found out that the person in charge of defending Azure Sun City was Iron Bone, their eyes were filled with disbelief. A period of time had passed since the life and death arena was set up at the foot of the mountain, and its popularity had gradually decreased. Because Iron Bone participated in the secular war and wiped out the White Tiger Corps, he once again became the #1 trending topic. What family war? What who fought with who for 3 days and 3 nights? Even recently, the hot topic of a family head's concubine having an affair with his housekeeper was covered up by Iron Bone. The happiest people were the 7 city lords of Azure Sun County. When they received the news, they almost couldn't help but jump in excitement. Azure Sun City was the main city of the county, and Iron Bone's defense had undoubtedly brought light to them who were lost in the darkness. 6th grade Jinyang County. It wasn't undefeatable. The news of victory spread throughout Azure Sun County. The people in the cities, towns, and villages all rushed to spread the news and celebrated with gongs and drums. Many people even kowtowed in the direction of Iron Bone Mountain. When Azure Sun County fell, they would become slaves. They were Iron Bone, and it was Sect leader June who turned the tide. Naturally, they would be worshipped by the people. If June Changshao turned the sect into a temple and put up incense boxes, it would definitely attract many worshippers. Grand Chi Sect, Main Hall. After Qin Haoren received the news, he held the letter and sat in the main seat, dumbstruck. He couldn't recover for a long time. Iron Bone could resist an army of 300,000. How was this possible? If it wasn't written clearly in black and white, Alliance leader Qin would really think that he was dreaming. He had already received the news that Jinyang County had attacked Heian County and Huayang County. At that time, he had discussed with the Alliance leaders and finally came to the conclusion that Azure Sun County would be targeted. Because of this, Grand Chi Sect and the Alliance sects all closed their doors and didn't care about worldly affairs. When Azure Sun County was in danger, they all chose to stay out of it. This kind of action was really despicable. Therefore, Jun Changshao led Iron Bone disciples to defend Azure Sun City and defeated Jinyang County's army. This was undoubtedly a slap to their faces. It was loud and clear. This slap also woke up Qin Haoren, who was pretending to be asleep. He finally realized and admitted that Iron Bone was an existence that he and the Alliance couldn't fight against. Challenging Sacred Spring Sect. Fighting Massacre Shrine on the stage. Now, fighting against the elite army of a 6th grade county. What could Qin Haoren, his vast Chi sect, and his 100 sect alliance do? They couldn't do it at all. They didn't even dare to think about it. In the past, Iron Bone was just an ant at the foot of a mountain in the eyes of Qin Haoren and the alliance leaders. Now, it had become a giant that they could only look up at. Looking up was still behind. When Tao Yuan acknowledged Jun Changshao and Iron Bone, his 2,472 Tiger Army soldiers also joined the sect. When the number reached 5,000, the sect mission was triggered. When the disciples completed the mission and met the requirements, the sect's level would increase and the number of members would also increase. Iron Bone would also be one step closer to becoming a 5th-rate sect. Why? Because to be promoted to a sect, not only did it need 10,000 members, it also needed 1 martial king, 10 wuzong, and 1,000 martial masters. Iron Bone's realm level was completely met, but it lacked disciples. Therefore, increasing the number of members was the key to becoming a sect. Of course, disciples weren't a problem. Because the soldiers trained by Tao Yuan lived in Iron Bone, not all of them joined the sect due to the limit of members. As long as Jun Changshao didn't care about aptitude and wanted to improve, it would be easy for Iron Bone to be promoted to a sect. Chapter 491. Tao Yuan finally thought it through and truly regarded himself as a member of the Iron Bone sect. This showed that sect leader Jun's brainwashing ability was still very strong. As for what he said about following him to conquer the world and sweep through the world, he was actually bragging. Fighting a war was impossible. After all, the main task now was to develop the sect. After Tao Yuan agreed, the captured Tiger Might army soldiers naturally joined willingly. The number of disciples in the Iron Bones sect was instantly filled. Sect missions appeared in the mission pavilion, and the disciples began to actively work on them. During this time, Jun Changshao assigned the new soldiers to the Wolf Rider Hall and appointed Tao Yuan as the deputy hall master to assist Shui Rengui. One was a 5-star general, and the other was a rising star in the military world. What kind of achievements the Wolf Rider Hall would have in the future under the management of these two people? Let's wait and see. Sect leader Shui Rengui said, we don't have enough mounts. Don't worry, don't worry. Jun Changshao said indifferently, when the wolf cubs in the mountains grow up, they will be assigned to the Wolf Rider Hall. Living in a place full of spiritual energy and with the supply of feed pills, the hurricane wolves living in the mountains grew up very quickly. Soon, the new members of the Wolf Rider Hall would all ride one. Although Jun Changshao had no intention of conquering the world, since there were ambitious people in the Falling Star continent, he definitely needed to plan ahead and develop. At least when the war came, he would have the ability to deal with it. Although this Iron Bone sect leader was a little mischievous, he definitely had other merits besides being handsome. The contribution points of the newly recruited over 2,000 disciples were also overflowing. Jun Changshao didn't go to the shop. Instead, he bought a lot of molding rooms and mid-grade aptitude modifying elixirs for the development of the sect and disciples. Because Xinyang County stopped attacking, Qingyang County was able to calm down as usual. Sect leader Jun also had a rare moment of peace and began to think about who to give the holy grade aptitude modifying elixir to. Qianqian's aptitude is very strong. It's useless to give it to her. Let's give it to Qingyang first. Everyone could see that Li Qingyang had put in a lot of effort for the sect. Giving the elixir to him was definitely the most suitable. Jun Changshao wasn't biased when it came to the distribution of martial arts resources. He gave them to whoever was most suitable. If there was really no choice, then he could only give them on a first-come, first-served basis. Therefore, in the future, as long as there were people like Xiao Ziji in Yixingqian, there would definitely be a lot of them. When he bought the AWM sniper rifle, sect leader Jun had also bought 5 bottles of top-grade aptitude modification elixir. Now that he had 7 bottles, he gave them to Li Yuhua, Ling Yuanxue, Song Xianzhou, and Zhang Wei. Hoo. Inside the room, Li Qingyang clenched his fists tightly as his eyes glowed with a scorching luster when he took the modification liquid and raised his aptitude from supreme grade to divine grade. The transformation of his aptitude boosted his cultivation, allowing him to smoothly advance from the 7th rank to the 8th rank of Wuzong. At Wuzong's level, the one with the highest cultivation was Yixingqian, who had already reached the 9th level of Wuzong. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the others were at level 7. Long Xiang and the other disciples who entered the inner gate later were at level 4 or 5 on average. After Yang Yuhua, Ling Yuanxue, and the others took the top-grade aptitude modification elixir, their spiritual roots were raised to supreme grade. Because they had taken it before, although they were very excited, they weren't too surprised. Song Xianzhou, on the other hand, was extremely shocked. Senior brother Li, he said in disbelief, what kind of elixir is this? It can actually raise the level of one's spiritual roots after taking it. Li Qingyang said, don't be surprised, it's very common. Very common. Song Xuanzhou's mouth twitched slightly, then he excitedly went to cultivate. So far, there were 2 divine grade, 14 supreme grade, and 5 superior grade among the Iron Bone inner disciples. Note, the number of Iron Bone inner disciples in the previous paragraph was 22, but the actual number was 21. I calculated wrongly. There were so many disciples with high-level spiritual roots, it was impossible to find them in the 2nd or 3rd-rate sections. As for whether there were any in the 1st-rate sects, it was hard to say. It was still the same sentence. The Iron Bone had great potential, but it lacked time to grow. After the number of disciples reached the quota, the sect missions were triggered, and the disciples accepted them one after another. The sect's achievement value was capped at 5,000 points. If they completed all the missions, not only would they be overpaid, they would also be rewarded with 5,000 contribution points. Therefore, Jun Changshao could only open up the store again and spend them in advance. He bought Jia Bing's Qiankuan bag, but there wasn't anything good, so he spent 100 contribution points to refresh it. Holy shit! Sect leader Jun glanced at the new products and almost jumped up in excitement when he saw the mid-grade Qi gathering pill formula. Although natural spirit stones could increase one's cultivation quickly, there was a limit to it. The iron bone's biggest reliance was still the qi-gathering pill. The low-grade qi-gathering pill was effective in the lower levels, but as one's cultivation level increased, it would obviously lose its effect. Therefore, they needed higher-grade qi-gathering pills. He clicked on the introduction. The mid-grade qi-gathering pill could increase the speed of absorbing spiritual energy by 30 times. The low-grade qi-gathering pill could increase the speed of absorbing spiritual energy by 10 times, but with higher-grade herbs, it could increase the speed by 15 times or even 20 times. If the mid-grade qi-gathering pill was used with higher-grade herbs, it would definitely increase the speed by more than 30 times. Buy. 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 Jun Changshao bought the mid-grade qi-gathering pill formula without hesitation. It was automatically matched to the alchemy pavilion. He clicked on the pills and saw that there were many types of herbs needed to refine them, but they weren't too precious. He should be able to buy or grow them. He continued to flip through. Sect leader Jun saw a formula called antidote pill. The introduction said that after taking it, it could neutralize hundreds of poisons. In the future, disciples will have to go out and train in the wild. It's not bad to have an antidote pill. He spent another 1,000 contribution points to buy the formula. During this time, sect leader Jun had collected a lot of herbs. He opened the alchemy pavilion and could refine a few hundred pills. Therefore, he decisively refined the antidote pill. He continued to browse the store and found 2 more martial techniques. Although they were only high grade, they were still stronger than the exploding fist technique. Sect leader Jun decisively bought them. As long as the martial techniques were refreshed, he would buy them regardless of their grade to enrich the sect's martial techniques library. After copying 5,000 of each martial technique, sect leader Jun still had 796 contribution points left of the 4,996. He didn't panic at all because the disciples would slowly fill up their contribution points after completing the sect's missions. As expected. In the next 5 to 6 days, the disciples who accepted the missions completed them one after another. The contribution points and achievement points on the system interface kept rising. Sect leader Jun thought of ways to spend all 796 contribution points in order to make it a round number. On the 10th day, all the missions were completed. Contribution points, 50005000. Achievement points, 72005000. I can level up now. Jun Changshao rubbed his hands and clicked on the sect construction. Ding! Sect construction has increased to level 6. Ding! Sect members, contribution points, and achievement points have increased. Ding! Sect Spiritual Aura Pavilion opened. After the notification sounded, the system interface changed. Sect name, Iron Bone Zheng Sect leader, Jun Changxia Sect level, 6th rate sect construction, level 6 sect functions, medicine refining pavilion, smithing pavilion, talisman pavilion, spirit beast pavilion, spiritual aura pavilion. Sect cultivation technique, Yi Jin Jing, low-grade divine grade, cloud steps, low-grade high-grade, sound transmission technique, mid-grade high-grade, sect members, 500,010,000. Sect contribution points, 500,010,000. Sect achievement points, 22,001,000. Sect main mission, within 100 years, I finally broke through 10,000. At the start, the system interface's value limit was 100. Now that it had reached 10,000, Jun Changshao almost couldn't hold back his tears. For the sect, for the sake of becoming stronger. Even with a fever of 60 degrees, I still insisted on developing the sect. Do you know how hard I worked? The system poured cold water on him. There are still 90,000 disciples short of the 100,000 required for the main mission. Host must work harder and have a fever. Chapter 492. After the upgrade of the sect, sect leader June was most interested in the new function of the spirit room. From the word spirit, he speculated that it might be related to spiritual energy. From the word room, he guessed that it might have a nurturing function. Could it be that it can help me nurture spiritual energy? Jun Changxiao's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly tapped on the spirit room. A small panel popped up. As usual, there was a space similar to a 3D projection. There was something that looked like an alchemy furnace, and the words, Spirit Room, were engraved on it. There were many items under the panel, all of which were already there. For example, the elementary-grade cold-edge sword, iron shield, overlord spear, soft silk armor, and the intermediate-grade cold-edge sword. What was going on? Sect leader June tapped on the elementary-grade cold-edge sword with doubts. Item, elementary-grade cold-edge sword spirit room, 0 to 1 please select, metal spirit, wood spirit, water spirit, fire spirit, earth spirit. Note, as the level of the sect's construction increases, more spirit room will be unlocked. Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. What does this mean? The system explained, the host guessed half of it right. The spirit room does have a nurturing function, but it doesn't nurture spiritual energy. It nurtures weapon spirits. Nurturing weapon spirits? Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. The so-called weapon spirits were life forms formed in the weapons. Many people thought that the special effect of the green dragon crescent blade had a weapon spirit. In the end, it was targeted by the demon fiends sect. The function of the spirit room was to nurture the weapons and treasures of the system at a deeper level, thus condensing weapon spirits of different attributes. For example, the elementary-grade cold-edge sword. If it was chosen to nurture a fire spirit, it would become a weapon with a fire spirit. After hearing the system explain the function of the spirit room, Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. This function of nurturing weapon spirits was equivalent to embedding various attributes on the equipment. Let's give it a try. Jun Changxiao tapped on the Fire Spirit button, and a window popped up. Available quantity, 1, do you want to continue? Fuck. It can be nurtured in batches. If he took back all of his cold-edge swords and refined them with a single button, he would definitely be able to create a weapon with a weapon spirit. Continue. Jun Changxiao tapped on the button. The spirit accumulating furnace was suddenly filled with a rich fire attribute spiritual energy. It seemed that the spirit accumulating furnace had begun. According to sect leader Jun's experience, the more advanced the system was, the more time it would take to activate the functions. Thus, he retracted the system interface and began to consider another problem. Should he continue to recruit soldiers from the Tiger Might Army or recruit talented martial cultivators? As long as Jun Changxiao was willing, the number of members in the sect could easily exceed 10,000. After that, they would be able to directly certify the sect. However, although these soldiers' cultivation levels were not bad, their spirit roots were too weak, and their room for growth was limited. If he could take all of them in, he could even take in 100,000, let alone 10,000, because there were still many white captives in Qingyang City. However, once the number of people reached the requirement, it would be very difficult for the sect to become stronger in the future. In the past, Iron Bone only had a few hundred disciples, so Jun Changxiao felt relaxed. Now that the number of disciples had exceeded 2,000, the consumption of resources was simply too great. 100,000 mediocre disciples would definitely require more resources to nurture. This would also increase the burden and slow down the overall development of the sect. If I can't recruit soldiers, I still have to set my sights on martial cultivators with good aptitudes. At least I can save a lot of resources and speed up the growth of the sect. Jun Changxiao made a decision in his heart. The 100-year time limit made him have to treat it seriously and not just find a group of ordinary soldiers to rush in. How should he recruit them? He had to place them in the outer counties. Naturally, sect leader Jun would not openly poach them. Instead, he planned to not recruit them and let them take the initiative to come. Now, he had to think carefully about what method to use. The next day, the elementary-grade cold-edge sword was successfully nurtured. Jun Changshao hurriedly took it out. From the outside, the nurtured cold-edge sword did not change, but the cold aura was replaced by heat. Tisk, tisk. Jun Changshao said in amazement, a weapon refined from cold iron actually has a fire attribute after being nurtured. This is truly inconceivable. He released his spiritual senses and merged them with the sword. A small space opened up inside, and a little guy floated like a ghost. This was the newly nurtured fire spirit. Although its body was small, it was filled with the power of fire. The system said, the weapon spirit is in an ownerless state. The host must sign a contract with it to truly control it. Jun Changshao communicated with it with his spiritual sense and found that the little guy was a little resistant. However, after a little scare, it obediently submitted. Signing a contract with a newly formed weapon spirit was much easier than signing a contract with a ferocious beast. It only took an hour. After successfully obtaining the fire element weapon spirit of the cold-edged sword, Jun Changshao felt that he was more compatible with the weapon. With the weapon spirit in control of the weapon, he and the weapon spirit were indistinguishable. They could use the weapon better. Huff, huff, Jun Changshao held the sword hilt and communicated with the weapon spirit. The entire sword was instantly enveloped in scorching flames. It could be said that he was too handsome. Awesome! Sect leader Jun's eyes were filled with excitement. He then went to the inner yard's martial arts field and began to slash to his heart's content. Shwa! 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 Streams of flaming sword energy filled the air and interweaved into a dazzling net of flames. Damn! Su Xiaoma walked out from the side room. Looking at the crisscrossing flaming sword energy in the martial arts field, his eyes suddenly widened. Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others were also alarmed. They all looked at the sect leader practicing his sword with admiration. After playing for a while, Jun Changshao kept his sword and the flames gradually dissipated. He said, "Isn't it handsome?" Handsome! Everyone said in unison. Su Xiaoma said with a face of admiration, "If I can be a fire element martial cultivator like the sect leader, that would be great." He believed that Jun Changshao's flaming sword energy was related to him being a fire element martial cultivator. Isn't that simple? Jun Changshao said confidently, "Give me your cold-edged sword. This seat will let you become a fire element martial cultivator." Give me the sword and become a fire element martial cultivator. Su Xiaoma's eyes were filled with confusion, but he still handed the cold-edged sword over. "Are you sure you want the fire element?" Jun Changshao asked. Yes. As a man, he naturally liked the fire element that represented explosion and wildness. Jun Changshao then looked at Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others, and said, "Give me your swords as well. This seat will let all of you become fire element martial cultivators." Huh! All the disciples were dumbfounded. However, out of absolute trust in the sect leader, they all handed over their weapons. Sect leader Yang Yuhua scratched his head and said, "I prefer the earth element." Jun Changshao said, "As long as it is within the 5 elements, you can choose as you wish." Song Xianzhou anxiously said, "Sect leader, I like the metal element." Long Xiang handed over the conqueror spear and said, "Sect leader, I also like the metal element." Sect leader, I like the wood element. Sect leader, I like the water element. Although the disciples didn't know what was going on, as long as they handed over their weapons to the sect leader, they would tell him which element they liked. Stars. Jun Changshao said, "What about you?" Yi Xingqian muttered in his heart, "This emperor prefers to use his fists." However, since the sect leader took the initiative to ask, he said, "Up to you." After memorizing them one by one, Jun Changshao opened the spiritual aura chamber and began to refine them in batches according to the different elements. Although the spiritual aura chamber's refine function was slow, it took the same amount of time to refine one weapon and a pile of weapons. Therefore, early the next morning, the cold-edged sword that contained different weapon spirits was refined. There is a weapon spirit inside the sword. You can use the element you want after signing a contract with it. After assigning the weapons, Jun Changshao didn't forget to remind them. Weapon spirit? All the disciples' eyes widened. Knight Emperor, who preferred to use his fists, also had a look of surprise in his eyes. When he took the cold-edged sword and felt that there was indeed a weapon spirit inside, he opened his mouth in shock. This was really a weapon with a weapon spirit. Wait! Yixingqian broke down, Sect leader. Why is it a water element weapon spirit? Didn't you say anything was up to you? Jun Changshao said. At that moment, our Knight Emperor almost vomited blood. It would have been fine to give a fire or metal element weapon spirit, but to give a water element weapon spirit, did he think of himself as a woman? Chapter 493. Iron Bone disciples quickly signed a contract with the weapon spirit after obtaining the weapon. The advantage of this was that it would become an exclusive weapon. Even if others obtained it, they would not be able to use it as they did not have the support of the weapon spirit. Cold-edged sword and Overlord spear, as system weapons, were already very powerful. Now that they had weapon spirits, they would only be more powerful. To be exact, weapons with weapon spirits could be classified as treasures. Jun Changshao had helped many disciples form weapon spirits, which was equivalent to giving each of them a treasure. This was very powerful. It also shocked Yixingqian. He had seen weapons with weapon spirits in his previous life, but they were extremely rare. The sect leader actually gave them to his disciples. The upper realm. They must have come from the upper realm. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. On the large training field in the outer courtyard, Su Xiaoma and the others communicated with the weapon spirits. In an instant, fire element red, water element blue, wood element light green, earth element light brown, and metal element bright yellow. The brilliant 5 elements spread out, interweaving into a spectacular scene. From another perspective, it looked like they were all equipment embedded with various attribute stones. They were definitely RMB players in the game. He Wudi, who had just finished cultivating in the forging room, saw Su Xiaoma and the others holding all kinds of beautiful weapons. He immediately widened his eyes and said, These weapons all have weapon spirits? He was indeed an expert. He could tell at a glance. In his world, weapon spirits were standard. Without them, one would not be considered an expert. He would be embarrassed to greet them when he went out. However, in the mortal realm, martial masters had weapon spirits, and there were so many of them. This was shocking. They must have been left behind by the 7 profound sage in the mortal realm. Yixingqian thought that these weapons came from the upper realm. As a real person from the upper realm, he Wudi thought that they were left behind by a powerful person. This misunderstanding was really wonderful. Whoosh! Whoosh! On the training field, the 5 elements were released frequently. It was gorgeous. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others were fire element weapon spirits. The flames that spread out revealed an explosive power. Long Xiang and Song Xianzhou were both metal-type weapon spirits. The spearhead and the sword body exuded an indestructible sharpness. Yang Yuhua's spirit wasn't a weapon, but an iron shield. Because it had an earth attribute artifact spirit, after it was activated, it immediately formed a thick and heavy aura, and its defensive strength also increased. As for the wood and water elements, they were more of a support type, so they were more suitable for girls. No wonder. Yixingqian, who had obtained a water-type equipment spirit weapon, had the urge to vomit blood. Sect leader Jun stood in front of the main hall with a smile on his face as he watched his disciples test their weapons. The spirit concealment pavilion, which had been opened to the 6th level, was indeed very powerful. If the disciples were equipped with this kind of weapon, their combat strength would definitely increase by a lot. Furthermore, as long as he had a system weapon, he could use spirit accumulation at any time. He didn't need any random materials. It's a pity that elementary weapons like the cold-edged sword and the Overlord spear can only be used once. This was what Sect leader Jun was dissatisfied with. He opened the spirit concealment pavilion and tapped on the cold-edged sword. The data that appeared was similar to the cold-edged sword, but the number of spirit accumulations was 2, which meant that 2 types of artifact spirits could be produced. I am a fire attribute martial cultivator and the king of the sword Dao. Choosing a fire spirit and a metal spirit is more suitable. Jun Changshao muttered. At this moment, Lu Qianqian walked in from the inner courtyard. He said, Qianqian, bring your cold-edged sword over. I will help you modify it. It was a pity that there was no ice attribute artifact spirit, otherwise, it would definitely be his first choice. Lu Qianqian walked over, but did not take out the cold-edged sword. Instead, she said, Sect leader, disciple wants to go out and gain experience. She had mentioned this matter before, but because of the invasion of Xinjiang County, it was temporarily put on hold. Now that the matter had been temporarily resolved, it was time for her to go to the Northeast Lu Prefecture to cultivate. All right. Jun Changshao said, I allow you to go out and gain experience. He would not stop his disciples from going out. However, Jun Changshao added, bring me the cold-edged sword first. Going out to gain experience was not a problem, but she must first condense a weapon spirit. At least it could increase her combat power, and it would be safer outside. Lu Qianqian handed over the cold-edged sword. Jun Changshao did not ask her what weapon spirit she needed. Instead, he chose a fire spirit and a water spirit. Because there was no ice spirit, the second best choice was the water spirit. As for the fire spirit, he hoped that it could melt her cold heart. The next day, Jun Changshao handed the weapon that had been condensed with a spirit to Lu Qianqian and said, when do we leave? Today. Lu Qianqian said. So soon? Jun Changshao thought for a moment and said, approved. Iron Bone Sect, outside the mountain gate. Li Qingyang, Shao Ziji, and the other disciples personally sent their eldest senior sister off. Although Lu Qianqian's personality was cold and taciturn, she was still the eldest disciple of the Iron Bone Sect. Naturally, she was deeply respected by her fellow disciples. Eldest senior sister. Lu Wancher cried, take care. She used to be very afraid of Lu Qianqian. After all, when she first came, she had a sword on her neck. However, after she became a disciple of the Iron Bone Sect, if there was anything she did not understand in martial arts, her senior sister would guide her. Although she was cold and taciturn, she could often point out the flaws in one sentence, which benefited her a lot. With the gradual contact, Lu Wancher became more aware that her eldest senior sister was just cold, but she was actually a very good person. Ling Yuan Shua and the other Iron Bone Sect disciples watched their eldest senior sister leave the mountain. They were also sad. Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma said, where's the sect leader? Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I don't know either. Jun Changshao did not come to send his eldest disciple off. He sat alone on the roof of the main hall. The past rose up in his sea of consciousness. I want to join the Iron Bone Sect. This was the first sentence Lu Qianqian said when she first appeared. At that time, sect leader Jun had just crossed over. He even had to rely on Aunt Wang to eat. It could be said that he was poor and destitute. You're the sect leader. I left the sect. In the face of Lu Qianqian's doubts, sect leader Jun used all his means to make her stay. Later, he went to Qingyang City to participate in the recruitment of hundreds of sections. This sect's only disciple had a poisonous tongue, which also gave many readers the opportunity to use this topic to criticize. Damn it. Jun Changshao shook his head and threw away all the memories. He said, "It's not like you won't come back. Why be so sad?" He stood up and looked at the graceful figure that had disappeared on the stairs. He transmitted his voice, "Lu Qianqian, remember my words. You will always be the eldest disciple of the Iron Bone sect." Lu Qianqian, who went down the mountain, heard it but did not respond. If you encounter trouble outside, don't be rash. You must find a way to ask for help from the sect. I and your junior brothers and sisters will be your strong backing. Jun Changshao transmitted his voice again. Lu Qianqian stopped at the foot of the mountain and looked back at the gate. A group of junior brothers were still waving their hands and smiling as they sent her off. When she was expelled from the sect, no one comforted her or cared about her. Now, she was just going out to experience the world. It did not mean that she would not return. Her junior brothers and sisters stood in front of the gate to send her off and did not leave for a long time. At that moment, Lu Qianqian's heart was in turmoil. Is it so difficult to have a heart like still water? Her eyes were filled with bitterness and she left without looking back. On this day, the eldest disciple of the Iron Bone sect went down the mountain and began her experience. As for when she would return, it was unknown. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.